The man is obviously a useless person who can't even take care of himself. But at the moment of stepping into another world, it directly broke the dusty, century-old return record, just because I have the ability to do clones indefinitely. My first clone is immersed in forbidden magic, determined to become an immortal demon god who is famous throughout the continent. The second clone is to devote himself to the order of the Lord God, knock on the door of the gods with sincere faith, and rise to the rank of a glorious holy knight. The third clone took the initiative to defect to the Ghost Blood clan. With the power of his own pure and unsullied bloodline, he naturally sat on the position of the leader of the New Blood clan. Fourth, the body and mind are united in their pursuit of justice. Guarding the safety of the people with his flesh and blood, he became a mainland hero admired by thousands of people in one fell swoop. The fifth doppelganger is with extraordinary business acumen. In the business districts of various countries, they worked step by step and finally reached the top and became one of the most prestigious giant merchants in the mainland. It turns out that this is a world of awakening abilities. Hundreds of years ago, the human body underwent mutations and began to develop various strange abilities. Immediately afterwards, they will be forcibly teleported into another world by a force, and they can only return to the Blue Star by completing extremely difficult tasks there. However, there are almost no humans who can return to the Blue Star alive in the end. The desperate Awoken began to create a terrifying riot before the forced teleportation. In that turmoil, I witnessed my family leave me, and I was left crippled for life. In despair, I chose a secluded life alone. At this moment, looking at my unconscious legs, I secretly cursed God's injustice in my heart. But just as I was thinking wildly, an indifferent mechanical sound suddenly came from my ears, detecting the presence of the host, and the Akasha system was accessing. Awakening, the only hidden ability incarnation host, will be forcibly transmitted to another world after 2.5 hours. Suddenly, I looked at the pop-up window in front of me with a dull face. If the probability of an ordinary person going to another world and eventually surviving is 5%, then a useless person like me who can't walk may not even survive the first day, because the time algorithm in the other world is 10 times that of the Blue Star. And before that, the fastest record for the Awakened to return to the Blue Star took a year, which means that I have to survive in the other world for at least 10 years. At this moment, I can only secretly pray that the incarnation is a very powerful life-saving skill. However, then a figure that looked the same as me appeared in front of me. I guess this should be the skill effect of the avatar, as I was able to feel the vision of another body at this point. Immediately, I had an extremely absurd idea. Then I closed my eyes and urged the clone to walk towards the teleportation circle to the other world. Looking at the window where the system prompted the teleportation to be completed, I gasped heavily, but soon I felt something strange. I obviously asked the avatar to complete the teleportation task instead of me. But at this moment, I can clearly feel that my body has also come to another world at the same time. It feels as if my soul is manipulating two bodies at the same time. Then there was a ding-dong, and the system reminded me that I had returned to the Blue Star on my own because I did not go through the Kalmar shop. Unlock the privilege ability Otherworldly Teleportation Array can be moved to places where it has been before and can only be used once in a day. At the same time, it successfully set a new record for returning to the Blue Star, rewarding the host with 1,910,213 karma points. At this time, my face was full of disbelief, and if I guessed correctly, it should have been after I summoned the clone back to the main body, causing the system to mistakenly judge that I had returned to the Blue Star, and at the same time broke the long-dusted clearance record. The karma value that the system rewards me is a very useful thing for the awakened person. It is distributed quantitatively based on the performance of the awakened people in the world they care about. Only by accumulating enough karma can you purchase items that return to the Blue Star in the marketplace. At the same time, the awakened can also use it to enhance the effect of the skill, and I have almost 2 million karma points in my hand, which is almost the amount accumulated by a very powerful awakened person over the past 2 years. Then I waved my hand and entered the recovery enhancement state window. For a moment, it seemed that a soft force was pouring into my leg bones. Soon I felt that my legs had fully regained sensation. Then I set my sights on the window of unique skill enhancement. With a ding-dong, the incarnation's body awakened to the ability to think alone. In other words, even without my control, the avatar can act alone in another world. In addition, it can filter out some inferior stimuli and emotions for me. This means that whether it's a dimensional stun or an avatar damaged, I don't share the feeling of a doppelganger. It's like controlling a game character in a virtual world, and the number of avatars I split will increase with the increase of skills. The first sentence I decided to name the avatar Hands, because his special ability is magic affinity, so I decided to let him go to another world to complete the adventure mission for me first. The name of the second incarnation is Hins, and his special ability is to be strong, so he stayed on the Blue Star to exercise his strength. After about 2.5 minutes, I shifted my vision to Hands' body, and the teleportation point on the other side of the world was was near a dense forest. But it didn't take long for me to run into a fierce guy. I hurriedly drew my short sword and blocked the bear beast's pounce. This is as I guessed. My real body does not feel negative emotions such as fear because of it. Then I picked up the dagger and poured magic into the bear beast's body, and the blade penetrated the bear beast's body with a snort. After a short pause, I saw a village appear on the other side of the path. The village chief, Toms, was a charitable old man who welcomed me to the village with a smile on his face, and he also generously said that he could let me stay overnight. After feeling that Hans's body had fallen asleep, I was back in my body. However, after only a moment, an uneasy thought rushed straight to my head. Then a red pop-up window pops up, detecting that the avatar Hans is dead, and the characteristics of the avatar and the accumulated data will be reset. Since Hans died in the village, I guess it was most likely the ghost behind the scenes of the village chief Toms. If I guessed correctly, it should be a drug in the food for dinner. However, before I could think of a reason, Tong reminded me again to reconnect with Hans, and the individual's race value has been changed to the undead, and the stunt corruption heart has been obtained. Seeing this, I hurriedly shared Hans' career on the other side. At this moment, hordes of skeleton-like creatures appeared in front of me, dressed more like aiding villagers than awakeners. Then there is only one possibility. The village chief has gone mad enough to turn the entire village into an undead. Soon, a strange force appeared on my body, forcing me to act. Although I can completely ignore it with my current physical fitness, it is better to follow their instructions first in order to avoid startling the snake. It's just that I feel a very familiar feeling about this power, and it feels like it's the power I was controlling Hans's body. If Hans's magic affinity characteristics are combined with the effect, maybe I can use it to control other undead skeletons. About 7 days later, at this point, I have successfully controlled an undead skeleton with the magic affinity trait, and during this time, I also discovered an interesting thing. In addition to being able to control undead creatures, you can also control some smaller guys. This gave me better options for night scouting operations. The ability to share through vision. I found that the village chief Tom's companions went to an abandoned wooden house every night. There was a faint breath inside, and even if the spiritual hub filtered out the emotions, my real body still instinctively felt the thought of fear, and there was a hint of decay in it that was the same as mine. So I guessed that the Tom's guys were probably the most evil warlocks. Since there are skeletons of the same kind in the house, it means that some kind of ancient sacrifice is likely being performed there. Then, just as I turned to look for Tom's traces, a powerful energy quietly penetrated my body. At this moment, Tom's figure slowly walked towards me, but fortunately he didn't notice the breath I left on it. When the next day came, a young man appeared in the village. He said that his brother was lost here, so he wanted to meet with the village chief Toms to inquire about the news. The village chief Tom's eyes widened when he heard this, because he found that the young man in front of him looked exactly like the awakened person he had met a few nights ago, and this young man was my second incarnation, Heinz. I introduced myself as Hans' twin brother, and my psychosis told me that Hans should be around here. Then I shifted my gaze back to Hans. At this moment, in that abandoned wooden house, several undead skeletons formed a large circle, and in the center of them was a dark purple crystal. I was right. Tom's was really using black magic to absorb the soul power of the skeleton villagers. The system prompts me that this crystal is called a fragment of the immortal. When facing this crystal, I could feel a strong sense of oppression. What the hell is the origin of this undead king? Just a fragment can burst out with such power. While I wasn't paying attention, I turned my head towards the undead skeletons in front of me and cast the magic affinity characteristic skill. In an instant, all kinds of negative emotions kept rushing towards my head. Just the next moment, I felt as if my head was filled with something. The random system popped up a prompt window to me. Because the individual met the conditions and grew, the elite undead Hans evolved into an immortal magician necromancer. The black magic hidden in the fragments in special cases was fused with the individual, and the progress of the immortal fragments reached 1-3, and the special skill evil wisdom was obtained. This should be the effect of the magic king, which integrates the fragments of immortality into Hans' body, resulting in the evolution. Soon I completely seized the command of the skeleton army through magic affinity. This scene shocked the guards, because he found that the skeleton in front of him was completely out of his control. This feeling was very bad for him. After a while, the gate with the dark magic barrier was forcibly broken open by the skeleton army I commanded. This is thanks to my newly mastered skill, evil wisdom, which allows me to understand the magic of evil attributes with just a glance. At this time, the village chief Toms exuded a fierce aura and strode towards me. He asked me sharply where I got the undead king fragments, and now he couldn't feel a trace of the fragments at all. Hearing this, I indifferently condensed a phantom shadow on my heart. This made Toms angry, and he said he couldn't tolerate me integrating the fragments of the undead king into his low-quality body. As he spoke, Toms waved his wand, and for a moment the air was filled with a mysterious atmosphere. The surrounding black magic seemed to be manipulated by him, which was his skill, Deathfinger. I saw a huge spike rumbling out of the ground, I ignored it, just condensed an energy shield and easily absorbed it. This scene stunned Tom's eyes. He didn't expect me to be proficient in black magic. I saw him wave his hand. Immediately, the souls of all the black magicians in the village passed towards his location. After several souls fused, a deep black crown was slowly formed. Then he muttered something in his mouth, as if he wanted to use a very powerful magic skill. But I don't have much patience to spend with him anymore. With a bang, Tom's was hit by a powerful force, and his body kept flying backwards. He already felt an unprecedented sense of fear in his heart. He hesitated to say something, but soon he was completely out of breath. At the same time, in a mysterious castle, St. Liasta peeked into the near future, and there was a precursor to the resurrection of the undead king to the west of the continent. After dealing with Tom's, I came to the outside of the village, where hundreds of undead warriors were almost wiped out in the battle. But since Han's body evolved into a necromancer, it is no longer necessary to live creatures. Even corpses can be controlled. Immediately, I found Tom's body, and he had drained all the souls of the black mage in the battle just now. So if I wanted to ask for information about the undead king, I would need to torture Tom's soul. However, what I didn't expect was that no soul was detected on Tom's body. Judging from the traces on his body, it seemed that someone had forcibly taken it away through the magic circle. In this way, there must be a stronger organization behind Tom's. After solving these troubles, I returned to my true body and prepared to start strengthening my attributes. Because Hans has evolved into a high-level life-form necromancer, my real body will feel instinctive fear when facing Hans at this time. So I have to strengthen my real skills. With a ding-dong, the spiritual value of William the Awakened exceeded the benchmark value, and the skill Ming Still Water was obtained. It can keep the heart immune to external stimuli and defend against mental attacks. After I upgraded my skills, I always had a strange feeling that I could always get the skills I needed most at the moment. Then I went outside to settle tonight's dinner, just in case I had been using black magic to hide Hands in the shadows. But now it seems that I am thinking too much, and the blue star is still very safe at this time. Before I could finish speaking, there was a sudden explosion from behind me. I looked in the direction of the sound and found that the gold shop in front of me had been hijacked, and there was still an orc in it. If I guessed correctly, they should be notorious villains. He is here to call those who use awakened abilities to commit crimes, although there are righteous awakened ones who come out to protect ordinary citizens. But if this were to work, my family would not have died tragically at the hands of these villains. At this time, the gangsters who robbed the gold shop happened to pass by me, and I kept silently thinking in my heart that there would be guardians to track them. Because of all these years of seclusion, I don't have any confidence in myself. On the other side, the villains who robbed the gold shop came to an abandoned house, and as long as they passed through it, the portal placed in advance could evade the tracking of the guardians. However, when they got there, they could only see their companions sleeping. Seeing this, the orc quickly squatted down and asked his companion what happened. At this moment, a skeleton slowly walked out of the shadows. I have already figured out that I am not only myself, but also Hans and Heinz and others. Meanwhile, on the other side, the National Guardians Association Center. They sent a team to track down the villains involved in the disturbances. About 2.5 minutes later, when they arrived at the scene of the incident, there was no imaginary confrontation scene, and all they saw was the fallen figures of the villains. It looks like someone cleaned up the gang ahead of time. I'm walking home here, and it's actually nice to move my muscles and bones occasionally. When I got home, I controlled my second doppelganger, Heinz, to a castle. It is a bustling town. I heard it from the mouth of the old guy Tom's. It's just that this place is not as prosperous as Tom said. On the contrary, it is deserted, and even the guards who are interrogating outsiders cannot see the figure. Randomly, as I passed by an alley, I saw a bald man bullying a little girl. It looks like extorting money from the little girl, but these are other people's affairs and have nothing to do with me. After they left, I found the little girl and asked her something. I want to hire you as my guide, and I will pay you 2 silver coins. Then I was led by Ella to the best hotel in town. I told her that she could be my city guide every day, and the reward was 2 silver coins, so she wouldn't have to pay the protection fee like today. Time soon came to the next day, and I learned something about the origin of the city from Ella's mouth. Its name is Azantu, a small city in the kingdom of Berea located in the west of the continent. One of the places that I found very strange was that there was a strange pattern painted all over the city, and it doesn't look like ordinary paint, but more like fresh blood. Ella said that this was actually the symbol of the Barak organization that managed the streets. Soon I discovered that Ella had a unique ability to smell all the smells nearby, because she could easily say that my breakfast food was chicken blood soup, but she smelled the smell of chicken blood on my body. However, the moment we left this alley, a blood-stained figure teetered in the shadows. 2.5 days passed like this, and I waited for a long time at the agreed place without seeing Ella. This makes me feel very strange. She usually arrives before me. At this moment, 2 figures slowly walked towards me, and I recognized them as the bald men who had blackmailed Ella a few days ago. I handed them a lot of silver coins very sensibly. After receiving the the protection money, they turned around and left very satisfied. At this time, I heard some of the words they muttered as they left, and they had caught a girl yesterday. And if you look closely, the pattern on their necks is exactly the same as what I saw on the street a few days ago. Thinking of this, I strode forward and shouted at their footsteps. But in the next second, I was so discouraged that I still couldn't completely overcome my nightmare. Suddenly, Ella's voice came from behind her, and when she looked back, she realized that she had done something wrong. But at this time, the head man couldn't help but clench his fist at me. I didn't think too much about it, and handed all the silver coins on my body to the bald man, because I saw that Ella was in great pain now. I reassured her that she could tell me what was going on. She held back her tears and said that her brother was suddenly gone. After saying this, I suddenly remembered something. If I heard it correctly, the bald man had taken away a little girl. Then maybe there were other children besides her who had been taken away. After listening to my words, Ella's legs seemed to have been instantly drained of strength. And if it was really the Berea organization that took her brother away, there would be no hope at all. Because what they want is not protection money but blood on their bodies. I wonder why they need blood. Ella then told me about the true origin of the city. The city, named Azantu, is actually a vampire's granary. All organizations, including the Berea organization, are working for vampires. All citizens of the city did not have the right to leave here because they were born to be food for vampires. That's why I saw the scene of the city gate being unguarded, and they wished that more outsiders would come here to provide food. After learning about these things, I lifted Ella's face. If what you say is true, we must hurry up and rescue your brother. Hearing Ella's worried face, it was not that no one had stood up to resist these organizations, but in the end it still became food for vampires. I told her not to worry about this, because now I triggered a hidden mission to save the unfortunate maiden. Then I was guided by Ella to the bald man's residence. At this time, a person ran up excitedly with a show-off look. It was I, a fool from out of town, who willingly gave them a generous protection fee. He didn't see my gloomy face, but continued to say to himself, he felt that I must have given a lot of silver coins to the bald man who was guarding the door outside, so he hoped that I could do it equally. I ignored him and told him why I came here. Where did you catch the children? Hearing the other party's face was unhappy. This was the first time someone dared to talk to them in a questioning tone. The next second, I stretched out my palm and grabbed his neck tightly, and I gave you another chance to explain where the children were being held. Otherwise, I would treat you equally and let you end up the same as the bald man. Before I came here, I figured out one thing. I have strong and super recovery skills, and I am not afraid of these guys at all. Sure enough, the dagger they stabbed couldn't penetrate my skin at all. I smiled and told him that I was prepared, and it was impossible for ordinary iron weapons to pierce the super protective clothing on my body. It didn't take long for me to clean them all up, but even so, they still told me very hard that what I was doing now was just in vain, because their master was coming over soon. Then I found a little boy in an abandoned wooden house. I saw a picture of him, and it should be Ella's younger brother, Alan. And at this time, a bat appeared on the window. Then, the moment I turned away with Alan, a voice questioned me behind me. How could he appear in his restaurant and take away his food? He felt that I should be a member of the Oath of Heaven. Otherwise, I would be Alan's brother. Otherwise, I would not have the courage to fight vampires. I smiled and told him that I was not the oath against heaven, as he said, but just an outsider who was extorted money by his organization. The moment the words fell, the vampire opened its paws and pounced on me. I pushed Alan away from behind me and told him to leave here quickly and not look back no matter what happened. Then I swung my silver sword and swung a silver arc, blocking his attack sideways. Suddenly, the vampire raised his other paw and grabbed my throat violently. With a thud, my body staggered backwards. Although I have the ability to super recover, I don't have to worry about these injuries, but it is still not enough against creatures like vampires. In the eyes of the other party, I was hitting a stone with an egg. At this time, the vampire lifted my body. Then his teeth slowly bit into my neck, and there was no other way at the moment. I spat out a stone from my mouth and bit it tightly with my teeth. The vampires immediately panicked, and what I had in my mouth was the spark magic prop, specially designed to restrain their vampire clan. Judging from the scene in front of me, I should want to die with him. I didn't give him a chance to react, and used my strong skills to hug his body tightly. And since you already knew, then die with me with peace of mind. With a loud rumble, the nearby house instantly turned into a sea of fire, but my body was only partially burned, and I didn't expect to survive in this situation. I guess it should be strong skills that protect my body to some extent. It's been 2.5 days since I found Ella. The moment she saw me, Ella hugged my body very excitedly. She hadn't seen me for so many days, and she thought I was also buried in the fire. In fact, what she said was not wrong. By the time I returned to the hotel, Heinz was already dead, and now it is my third clone, although Akun is a new clone, but I generated it one according to Heinz's characteristics. So rounding it up should be Heinz. After finishing the mission to save the unfortunate girl, I returned to the hotel to rest. After fighting vampires, my body seems to have become stronger. Suddenly, at this moment, a figure appeared from behind me and grabbed my neck tightly. He said that he had finally caught me, the guy who destroyed the vampire family's granary, and in an instant I felt that my body could not use any strength. I don't know what the vampire behind me used to restrict my ability to use. Then he couldn't help but bite my neck. He licked the blood on the corner of his mouth, thinking that it was still a child's blood that tasted better. At this time, I couldn't care about what he was saying, because I felt that my body seemed to have changed now. Immediately, at the next moment, the system pop-up window reminded me that Ah Kun's individual race had become a vampire. Gain special skill, residual health, and change. The skill super, recovery to regeneration. On the other side, the vampire leader Verak unleashed a terrifying coercion. Because now Akun's individual race has become a vampire, the body will involuntarily obey the vampire on the higher level unconditionally. Verak asked me if I had saved Alan. I trembled and said that I didn't understand what I was talking about, just an outsider from somewhere else. Because the skill Ming Still Water can help me filter out all mind control, I can hide things against my body's instincts at this time. Hearing this, Verak didn't think too much and chose to believe my answer. He was still very confident in his control over the lower vampires. Then he told me to follow him to accomplish something, thinking that following him would just get some information. Soon we arrived at a castle hidden in the forest, the base of the vampire family's branch in Azantu, and Verak is the commander at the head here. Now all the vampires gathered here seemed to be having a feast. At this time, a female vampire hugged my arm from behind. His name is Helen, and like me, he is a remnant of blood mutated after being bitten by a vampire, not a traditional purebred vampire. So when she saw me, she seemed very enthusiastic. I don't really understand what residual blood is. In fact, the so-called residual blood is a type of non-purebred vampire, usually the offspring born by vampires in love with humans, or mutants created after being bitten by purebred vampires like me. If we compare it to the human class, the remnants of society are like the knightly class. Purebloods like Verak are the aristocratic class. As a vampire, Madame Curran is a member of the royal family, and she flows with the purest and most ancient true blood. Of course, there is holy blood on top of this, but they all exist in ancient myths. At this time, all the surrounding conversations came to an abrupt end, and Verak was announcing something important. He had just received a piece of information from the guys who had sworn against the heavens and disappeared with the fragments of the undead king. And after investigation, it was discovered that the last place where the fragments of the undead king appeared was exactly where their destroyed granary, the warehouse they used to hold fresh blood. So from now on, all vampires need to strictly investigate the area they are responsible for, and if there is any abnormality, they must report it to him immediately. After listening to what he said, I suddenly understood something in my heart. The village where Toms used to refine the fragments of immortality happened to be near Azantu, so they were probably members of the Heaven-Defiant Oath organization in Verak's mouth. The next day, I followed Helen to patrol the area in charge. Because of the same blood, I happened to be assigned to manage the same jurisdiction as her, but it was very uncomfortable for vampires to go out to patrol during the day. On the way, I chatted with Helen, and it turned out that there were fragments of the undead king refining inside their vampires. After the refining is completed, it will be fused with the oath against heaven, so now they will have such a drastic move. However, vampires like us at the bottom are not qualified to know where the undead king fragments are hidden. In the evening, I had dinner with Ella's siblings, and I covered myself tightly the whole time. Otherwise, I was worried that mutating into a vampire would frighten the siblings. While I can suppress the vampire's bloodthirsty instincts, some changes in appearance cannot be changed. During the conversation, Ella told me that she should know where the fragments of the undead king were hidden. A year ago, she had been cleaning graves, and every Friday members of the Berea organization would enter a stone chamber there. And every time you open the door of the stone chamber, a terrible and evil smell will be emitted. It was late at night. At this time in the stone chamber, Verak's assistant was handling an offering. His name is Tilford, and he is also a purebred vampire. Suddenly, at this moment, a group of skeletons suddenly appeared in the stone chamber. Seeing this, Tilford commanded his vampires to rush up and stop them. At this time, he was so angry that his face turned pale. Only those guys who swore an oath against heaven would refine these skeletons, and sure enough, the oath against heaven had already violated the contract. At this time, I transformed into hands and slowly came to him. Whether you go against the sky or not, I will decide this fragment of the undead king behind you. Hearing this, Turek pierced his shoulder with a smile. The faint smell of blood instantly stimulated his bloodiness. Seeing this, I unhurriedly reassembled the skeleton he had shattered. Immediately afterwards, several skeletons clung to Tilfer's body from behind. At this time, I controlled another doppelganger, Akun, to come to the rescue. I slapped the skeleton behind him with a wave of my hand, and I told him that Master Verak had noticed the anomaly. Now that the skeletons outside are almost finished, I came in now to see if I can help. Hearing this, Tillich used coercion from a vampire on me, and after careful investigation, he found that I was not lying, so he completely relieved me, and then he motioned for me to stand behind him and help him. The next moment, I obediently gave him a hand, and Tilfer looked surprised. How could I, as a residual blood, take the initiative to attack a purebred vampire? At this moment, he really couldn't figure it out, not to mention that I was still the residual blood that Lord Verac personally brought back. It was 2 black magic energies that tightly wrapped around his hands. He finally reacted, and he guessed that I might be the insider who should be in harmony with the skeleton. It didn't take long for me to drain all the blood from Tilfer's body. The system prompts me to obtain the skill blood magic by obtaining the blood of a purebred vampire. Then I tried to use bleeding magic skills against the barrier in front of me. Since it is Tilfer's skill, then the barrier should not be rejected. Sure enough, the barrier was broken just at once, and inside is the second immortal fragment. Then I concentrated all the spiritual power of the 3 clones on hands. At the same time, Verac, who hurried to the top of the stone room, looked at the scene in front of him in disbelief. Now he could no longer feel the aura of the immortal fragments, just like the oath he had made at the beginning to defy the heavens, and suddenly disappeared. Soon, a huge black shadow slowly appeared in the night. His silhouette gradually became clear in the dark, with a mysterious and oppressive aura. Seeing this, Verac quickly commanded his vampires to concentrate their fire on Sombra. It's just that these attacks hit me like tickling. At this moment, after absorbing the second fragment of the undead king, Hans once again completed his individual evolution to become a nether mage, and the progress of collecting the death fragments reached 2-3. The power of the inner black magic grows explosively, and the special skill is immortal, and when abstinence, immortality, if the root is not devastatingly destroyed, it can be continuously resurrected and regenerated. And when abstinence, all black magic can be unconditionally understood and taught all the knowledge and secrets that exist in the world. Then I grabbed my scepter and cast the black magic of death. In an instant, Villac and the others were surrounded by a thick smoke, and in this thick fog from time to time, a black hand suddenly stretched out from the depths and grabbed the unlucky vampire. This scene made Verac feel panicked. Even he had no way to deal with these black hands. After all the other vampires were dealt with, my figure slowly walked towards Verac. It seems that your bloodline is indeed the purest, and it can withstand black magic for so long, but now you can become my blood bag with peace of mind. After a while, I manipulated Akun to successfully feed Verac back. The next moment, the system prompted me to achieve new growth conditions, and the remnants of the special skill blood clan evolved into a blood clan. Pure blood is the same as I guessed. You can complete individual evolution by devouring the clan, just like Hans. As long as you collect 3 fragments of the undead king, you should be able to evolve into the legendary undead king, and you can grow faster by preying on your own kind. At the same time, on the other side, the rest of the bloodsuckers were forced to leave Azantu because of Verac's death. They can only return to the base area to request help from the headquarters. Here, Hans stayed here to deal with the remnants of the Berea organization first, and I manipulated Akun and Ella's siblings to prepare to go to Lapira City in the eastern part of the mainland, because her uncle ran a shop there. Anyway, the siblings have no other relatives here in Azantu, and I can't protect them all the time. It's been so long since we got along. There is a feeling of regret when we suddenly separate, and I haven't felt this way for many years since my parents passed away. My personality has changed a lot since I awakened my abilities. I returned to the village 2.5 days later. Hans evolved and got just the space to keep these vampires in, and if it could, maybe this space could be opened up on Earth. At this moment, Verac looked unconvinced. He had never been treated like this. At that time, I just fed back his blood and didn't kill him, because I thought it would be useful to keep these vampires in the future. Verac also saw that the undead king fragment that the guys in charge of refining the oath against heaven should be on me, because he felt more than one strong power in me. I followed his words and admitted my identity. You are right. I am indeed Hands of the Oath Against Heaven organization. Speaking of this, Verac raised his hand to cast the bleeding barrier, which he had condensed using the only true blood left in his body. I tested it a little and found that this barrier was difficult to break in a short period of time, and Hands had already consumed a lot of strength to get them here. So I used the dismissal summon to return to the real world. Immediately when I left here on my front foot, suddenly a silver arrow shot at one of the vampires. Verac recognizes the origin of the silver arrow, a silver arrow specially made by the paladin to deal with vampires. At this moment, a large Night Crusade team wearing silver armor was rushing towards them with a huge voice. At this time, I still couldn't believe what had happened during this time after returning to reality. First saving the poor and helpless girl Ella, and then solving the evil vampire group alone and saving the tragic fate of Azantu. I have never dared to think about becoming a hero. Thinking of this, I opened the system pop-up panel and did so many things, and now the mall points should have accumulated a lot. It's just that what I didn't expect was that I actually held more than 700,000 Kalma points at this time. Then I guessed that it should be the influence of black magicians and vampires, and the tasks related to them are very difficult because they are aliens, so it is understandable that the rewards are so generous. And I still still chose to continue to strengthen my skills. After a while, the system prompted me that the upper limit of my clone summoning had increased. In addition, a skill mask is obtained, and the main body can put its emotions into the clone container. Suddenly, an idea flashed through my head, and now I seem to know why I got this skill. For so long, every time I get an inherent skill, the characteristics of the skill will be what I need most at the moment. I had become close to people I didn't know before. It has also helped others defeat powerful enemies. Every time I do these things, emotions will always grow in my heart that I have never had before. It's just that I've been trapped in a corner for the past few years, so my mind hasn't become stronger with my body. All the negative emotions accumulated by those loneliness, sadness, etc. have eroded my heart to a certain extent. So this mask skill can help me solve the dilemma in front of me. It's just that the process of placing emotions is not the feeling of feelings disappearing all at once. It's a feeling of slowly putting it in a drawer. After absorbing these emotions, I was a little worried that Hans would not be able to withstand the effects of a lot of negative emotions. Hans comforted me by saying that pain and despair were indispensable companions in life, and there was no big problem for his necromancer race. As soon as I finished speaking, my whole body froze in place. This was what I had said to Hans, but I didn't expect it to be a different tone that came out of his mouth. It seems that these doppelgangers are more like people with a sense of independence after taking away emotions. At that moment, I heard a blasting sound outside. At this moment, there was hesitation in my heart again, and it must be the villain who was causing trouble in the city again. But I still have a hard time overcoming my timidity. At this time, Hans slowly walked up to me, and he said a word to me in a very firm tone. Even if there is no reason to destroy the evil forces, there is no need for me to hesitate. At this time, I also figured out one thing. In fact, I hope to prevent this kind of incident more than anyone else, but I will always choose to escape because of the inertia of my personality. And now, I am no longer the disabled, useless person I used to be, and from now on I have no reason to ignore these turmoil. Then I manipulated Hans to the scene of the incident. After a moment of examination, I cast the Necro-Dark Magic Insight Eye. Use the characteristics of being proficient in all things dark magic to find the villain's lair. At this moment, there are a few villains not far away who are bullying ordinary people at will, and I happen to see this scene through the Eye of Insight. In addition, there are many other such turmoil in my field of vision. It took me almost a night to clean up the nearby villains, but I'm not afraid that they will come out again to make trouble, because I have left an indelible mark of fear on their souls, and as soon as they sprout illegal thoughts, there will be a painful feeling. However, the Eye of Insight also has obvious limitations. If there is light on it, its power will gradually weaken and disappear, so it will be difficult to continue the operation of cleaning up the villains during the day. That's when I had an idea. At this time, there are many pigeons foraging around in the city. If you can control them, you can solve this problem. This is why many people are passionate about black magic. One is that you can summon all kinds of creatures as you like. I guess it should be that the magical ability of the casting type is related to the race of the target creature, and the race of pigeons is obviously much more difficult to control than the necroskeletons. Then I teleported to a cave in another world. After all, it is too risky to perform black magic in the Blue Star. After 2.5 hours, I finally managed to use a pigeon, then add a contagious effect to the magic. In this way, all the pigeons will follow my instructions. Then let's name them the Children of the Devil for now. Meanwhile, on the other side, the Paladin's crusade completely wiped out the vampire base in Azantu, and they also get some information from Verak's mouth that the vampires are just in a cooperative relationship with the descendants of the undead king. This made Archbishop Latius look distressed, as he deduced something from the traces of battle in the stone chamber. The vampire clan was indeed helping to refine the fragment of the undead king, but now the fragment should have been taken away, and his ability to trace back deduced that the person was Hans from the Oath Against Heaven organization. At this moment, St. Liasta conveyed an important message to Latius. He had recaptured the aura of the undead king, and the approximate location was in the cave in the mountains to the northwest. At this moment, I am sitting cross-legged at the entrance of the cave, waiting for the information gathered by the demon child. Immediately after a while, I noticed something unusual. At this time, the demon son's trajectory was a little strange, as if he was being hunted down. It didn't take long for a knight to appear at the entrance of the cave. They all wore the same cross, which was supposed to be a paladin from the order, so they must have come to capture Hans. After all, the order has always been very close to black magic. At this time, the leader of the night lock slowly walked up, and he told me that it was best to be obedient and capture him. I pretended to obey his words. Then he took advantage of his inattention and suddenly held out his big hand forward. At this time, black magic seems to have lost its effect. The saber in Rocky's hand easily pierced my chest. I really don't understand, although I got the black magic of the undead king, but I use it to punish the bad guys. Isn't I doing the same thing as you guys who claim to be the holy cult? Rocky interrupted me directly, and from the moment I chose to obtain the dark magic, I was destined to be no different different from those bad guys. At this point, I realized that something was happening in my body, and something was holding me back from using my dark magic from the beginning. As I was thinking, some singing voices gradually came over. I'm sure it's these voices that are weakening my magical abilities. While there is still the ability to kill the singing guys, doing so makes no difference from those villains. It was at this time that Rocky picked up his long sword and thrust into my body fiercely. Immediately, their singing was slowly forming a chain of glowing. But I just looked at them with a smile and forgot to tell you something. Once upon a time, Verak was so confident that he could trap me. As I said that, I used my ability to dismiss the summon again and return to the blue star. Now things are getting troublesome, and I have already made a grudge against the people of the 3 organizations in the other world. First of all, it was an oath against heaven. Then there was the later group of vampires. Then there is the Order, one of the largest forces on the mainland. And since there are various disputes on the continent due to my existence, it is no wonder that the value of Kalmar has risen so quickly. At this time, the demon children are already in action. Due to their contagious nature, they quickly become infected with black magic when they encounter other individuals. So now my ears and eyes are basically all over the city. Soon I got the first information. By the time I got there, the villain was torturing a girl. Seeing this, I rushed up to stop his behavior. Your life is over here. Take a good look back on your sinful life. If you want to talk about the level of evil, all magic cannot be compared to black magic. He can make people die painfully when they look back on their lives, as if they were killed by themselves. And because Hands has evolved twice, the death skeleton that has now been refined has also evolved into the ultimate form of ghost. 2.5 minutes later, Section Chief Park of the Supernatural Ability Management Bureau arrived at the scene. After investigating the scene, it was found that this place looked like a villain they had been tracking for a long time. From the nearby traces, it looks very similar to the Guardian's method, because a large number of traces of black magic have been detected. However, at this time, they really wanted to meet this Guardian. After all, it was the first time they had seen a Guardian write these words while working. At the same time, the Guardian Association received a request from the Supernatural Authority to assist in the investigation. They found that this case was very similar to the arrest of the trio some time ago, so they intend to let me join the society as a Guardian. At the same time, on the other side, I put my main body consciousness on Akun's body. Now Akun has safely sent the Ella siblings to Lapira City. At the time of parting, Ella hugged my body tightly. She is grateful that I have been with her during this time. If she hadn't been by her side, she would probably have died in Azantu. It's just that she is still a little worried about me, because she notices that my personality has changed a lot. This made me stunned. Could it be the influence of the mask? Previously, I gave Hands negative emotions and the desire to be recognized, so Hands would do things that were easy to attract attention, such as disguising himself as a guardian to punish those villains. And Akun gave him silence and lies. I didn't expect to be noticed by Ella so quickly. After saying goodbye to Ella and the others, I came to Teleria, the capital of the kingdom. In addition to being the capital of the kingdom, it is also the base camp of the Order of the Lord Gods. Then I found a hidden place, summoned my 4th doppelganger, Abu. His individual characteristic is martial arts, and he is able to compensate for his technique and experience in his workouts. The previous clones were basically shameful, so I need a bright identity to survive here in Teleria, and this time the clone will be a light swordsman respected by all. Then I came to the temple on the grounds that I would give everything to the Lord God. He hopes to inherit the will of the gods and become a paladin. Hearing this, the clerk looked dissatisfied. Even if I donated a lot of money, it was a bit blasphemous to let someone of unknown origin become a paladin. The knight commander felt that he was a little too worried, and it was clearly written in the divine record that those truly evil people would involuntarily reveal their true colors during the training of paladins. Hearing this, I smiled and told them, then you can rest assured to pay attention to my true face. It's just that I didn't expect the training of paladins to be so difficult. Not only do you need to complete more than 12 hours of training every day, you have to face the damn prayer while training. At first, I didn't understand this approach. It wasn't until a month later that I learned that in extreme cases, the divine power can be strengthened by repeated prayer to strengthen the faith. I just don't know if the people here are tortured and stupid, always staring at my body with a strange gaze. In the blink of an eye, it was 3 months later. Thanks to my super recovery ability and martial arts, I stood out in the training camp and became the best rookie in one fell swoop. It is also possible to participate in the baptism of the paladin until now, and the time is also a little earlier than in previous years. I can probably guess the reason inside. It should be that the Order urgently needs to enhance its combat effectiveness at this time in order to track down the immortal Hu Yi. The so-called baptism ceremony is actually a process of exchange. The recipient will dedicate all of their mana to the main god, so their bodies will no longer be able to harness the magic. In return, the Lord God will bless them so that they can exert their powerful divine power. But the size of the blessing received by each person is different, and the biggest factor that determines the size of the blessing is faith faith in the Lord God, the more pure trust and no lies when facing the gods, the more likely it is to become a powerful paladin. I don't have to worry about these things at all, which is one of the reasons why I desperately want to become a paladin, because I had already injected all the feelings of trust into Abu through masks before, and in order to make the Lord God feel the purest faith, concentrate all the spiritual power of the clone on Abu. So as I was baptized, a soft and powerful golden light slowly rose from the soles of my feet. At this time, everyone was immersed in this divine light, and this was the first time they had seen such a magnificent divine power. Even reached the head of the main idol. The bishop told me that a divine power of my level is presumed to be at the level of a priest. The random system prompts me to obtain skills, and the divine baptism can effectively share the spiritual power of each clone. And I found that the God in the main church is more like a systematic existence than a God with personality characteristics. When I let go of my mental power to feel God, if I had to use human emotions to describe the captured feelings, that should not be called trust or perhaps interest. And God also told me that divine power can only be used for good works. In the blink of an eye, the next day came, and the command post was completely in chaos at this moment. They are often disturbed by vampire forces when tracking down the descendants of the undead king. And as the crusade failed to achieve the desired results, the political pressure in the kingdom would intensify. As a result, the order now had to initiate a retreat. The Rocky Knight commander walked to the training ground very depressedly. At this time, he could only pin his hopes on the new forces. At this time, he noticed that there was a rookie on the training ground who was performing extremely well. Then he walked up to me. He said that my divine power had reached the level of an instructor, but there was still a clear distance from a true paladin, unless I was willing to go with him to the great temple of Rceaps. I didn't think too much and immediately agreed to his invitation. Although I had never heard of this Rceaps Grand Temple, but judging from his tone, he should have appreciated me. Just follow him. On the way, the lodge knight explained to me the origin of the great temple. He is a shrine of the Order of the Lord God, located in the heart of the continent. It is also the residence of the Pope and the Saint. Unexpectedly, he came directly to the temple where the Saintess lived, and the instructor once said that this was the best place to accelerate growth. At the same time, the real world, Hans quickly became popular on the internet because of the incident of punishing the villain. During this time, I discovered a strange place where the villains always brought up an organization called the Brahma Society, and this organization seems to be the key to connecting these villains. Then I transformed into Akun and came to a mysterious place. There was a man sitting quietly. I slowly handed him a bag. I came over to sell something. The man sneered lightly without even raising his eyelids. I was in the wrong place. This is not an ordinary pawn shop. I ignored him, poured out the contents of the bag with my backhand, and with a bang, the gold coins fell on the table like a torrential rain. This made the man's expression change suddenly. If I remember correctly, this is the badge of a member of a human trafficking organization. According to the news on the internet, it seems that he was killed by a masked madman. Then he looked at me carefully for a moment, weighed some things in his heart, and then asked me to go down through the back door here, but remember not to go anywhere else. I followed the instructions to find the back. Also sitting, there was a figure wearing a mask. I told him if I could replace the cash with something else. If you can, give me a lottery ticket for the first prize. After all, no matter how much cash is unusable, it is a pile of waste paper, and now I need to use this cash legally as Han Chengxian instead of Hans or Ah Kun. And if I get the money in the form of a lottery, I can avoid tracking future troubles. After 2.5 minutes, the masked man said that of course he could. Probably a lottery ticket of 6.1 billion can be picked up in the last 4 months. I was overjoyed to hear this, so please prepare 2 more lottery tickets for me. The masked man reluctantly spread out his big hands, and the value of the things in my bag was at most 6.1 billion. Hearing this, I signaled him not to worry about me having many more valuable things here. Saying that, I was like a trick, only to see 3 heavy gold bricks falling steadily on the table in front of me as if they appeared out of thin air, and the masked man's eyes only swept lightly on the gold bricks. Then he stared at the bracelet on my hand with a surprised expression, and he apologized for the previous words. The bracelet in my hand is obviously a subspace item, which is something that only those guardians are eligible for. A flash of anger flashed in my eyes. I was in a hurry. You should end the transaction as soon as possible. No wonder he smelled a faint smell of blood when I first came in, and judging from the contents of the bag, I was probably the mysterious person who specializes in killing villains on the internet. I stepped forward and grabbed his arm. I am very happy with today's transaction, and I will come often in the future. The masked man immediately understood my words, and I seemed to be warning him not to reveal what I had done. After a while, I left the pawnshop with 3 lottery tickets. Suddenly, with so much money, I really didn't think of buying anything at once, but after thinking about it, I might need some more subordinates who can be used at will. And at this time, the streets are very lively. A few months ago, many people did not dare to come out to breathe because of the poor security here. But now that I think about it, the peaceful scene scene in front of me turned out to be created by me. I don't know why, there is always a feeling of relief in my heart. At this moment, a strange voice rang in my ears. I chuckled in my heart, who the hell is this person? There is no movement at all behind me. I didn't think much about standing up, and actually secretly smelled me behind me. What the hell do you kid want to do? However, his words froze me in place, and if I guessed correctly, I am also a vampire, because he is a level 6 vampire from the Dothmer dimension. His words stunned me. This guy turned out to be a vampire from another dimension. In fact, the dimensional realm to which everyone was teleported after awakening their abilities was random, and tens of thousands of different dimensions had been derived so far. But the top priority is to find an excuse to leave here first. If you expose your identity in public, it will be over. However, the next moment, I naturally revealed my identity. I wondered why I answered his question so naturally. Could it be that he manipulates my spirit? Then he looked like he was the real thing. His name was Ganmo, from the Blood Alliance organization, an organization formed by vampires on Earth, and after returning to Earth, he was responsible for recruiting vampires for the organization. As he said that, he slowly handed me a business card introducing the Blood Alliance. I was a little confused. I didn't expect that there was such an organization on the Earth. But what did you mean by level just now? The dry demon didn't answer my question, and if I was interested, I would go with him. At the same time, the eyes of several people behind us were biased towards us from time to time. From their movements, it looks like they are reporting on work. It didn't take long for me to follow the dry demon to a basement, because vampires were afraid of the sun. The organization of the Blood Alliance chose to be established in the basement. Then the dry demon explained to me what level is. Level is level. As the name suggests, all vampires have vampiric factors that determine the level of strength, and the Blood Alliance can measure and quantify it, and the final number obtained is the power level of each vampire. Following his footsteps, we quickly arrived at a secret room, and the dry demon explained that the magic circle in front of him was used to detect the blood-sucking factor on his body. He told me not to be stunned here as wood. Since you're here, go up and test it. When I first stepped into the magic circle, I paused. How could there be a skull here? And at this time, I could feel the traces of black magic here. Not only black magic, but also various magic such as curses, and alchemy are all around it, and everything here is completely beyond my understanding. It's been more than 20 years since the first people with abilities returned to the Blue Star, but things like magic items are still scarce. And the reason for this result is precisely because the energy laws of supernatural abilities are applied differently in each field, such as mana and black magic are two completely different things. But the Blood Alliance seems to have mastered the ability to combine various magics. At this moment, 5 blood beads appeared on the magic circle, indicating that my blood-sucking factor is at the 5th level, and the connection between the blood beads is very strong, which means that my regeneration ability will be relatively strong. According to the law of the Blood Clan, my pure blood degree is about level 6. At this moment, the dry demon's face suddenly darkened, and at first he heard that I was from a different dimension, so he was a little expectant, but he didn't expect that my blood-sucking factor was at the level of level 5. As he spoke, he made a look forward. The next moment, several vampires waved their hands and grabbed me fiercely. This was beyond my expectations. They originally had other purposes, so it was no wonder that such complex magic was needed to measure the level. Suddenly at this time, the door of the secret room was pushed open from the outside. The person who came asked Ganmo to quickly stop his actions, and also wanted to arrest him immediately on charges of kidnapping and murdering his own clan. The dry demon looked unhappy. Lee Minju, you suddenly broke into someone else's house. It seems a little rude. I looked at Lee Minju's figure and felt a little familiar, as if I had seen him somewhere before. At this moment, the dry demon asked Lee Minju with an angry face. He asked Lee Minju's mind to clear up a little more and stop stupidly following the rules of survival in the Blood Alliance, because the Blood Alliance was originally a human servant with a soft bone. Obviously, their blood race is more powerful and noble than humans, but now they have to look at the faces of humans to hide underground and survive. Lee Minju's face darkened, and she directly replied, "It is precisely because of some reckless actions of these hardliners that they are forced to hide and survive." His words made the dry demon laugh. "Do you think all the vampires have the same idea as you?" As soon as the words fell, a colleague behind Lee Minju, Jae-hoon, took action. He swung a punch and smashed at Lee Minju's stomach. He has long taken refuge in the dry demon, and he has become a lord with castles and positions in Jiksun's dimensional realm. But after returning to Earth, not only did the place where he lived become a simple and dirty basement, but he also had to seek a job as a doorman at night for his living needs. Lee Minju didn't understand. Even if this was the case, there was no need to kidnap her own kind. Did she want to raise a flag against the Blood Alliance? The dry demon smiled when he heard this, but in fact, he was specifically here to collect low-level vampires. In reality, he had no way to get karma value, and in order to continue to become stronger, there was only one way left, that is, predation of the same race. Unlike the common homogeneous predation on Earth, It is necessary to hunt vampires from different dimensional realms, because different vampires become very powerful when combined. But if you simply carry out homogeneous predation, it will produce very serious spiritual pollution, and if you cannot overcome this spiritual pollution, you will become a mutant mad blood ghost. There was once a mad bloodthier who had completely lost his reason on Earth, and he paid an extremely heavy price to deal with this mad bloodsucker humans, and since then vampires have become synonymous with danger. But now, after countless studies by them, they finally know how to remove evil thoughts from their blood. Immediately, I understood something. I guessed that this magic circle was not only used to detect blood-sucking factors, but should also turn vampires into drugs without any side effects. Then I saw the dry demon handing Jae-hoon a pill. After swallowing it in one gulp, Jae-hoon's body swelled at a speed visible to the naked eye. He really didn't expect that the growth rate of the same race after praying was completely different, and at this moment, he felt that his whole body was full of endless power. Then he grabbed Lee Minju's neck, which was far from enough. You can also refine him into pills, by the way. The dry demon sneered. Lee Minju kept it for now, and now there is a purebred vampire waiting for him. However, the moment his eyes met mine, the corners of my mouth curled up with a touch of arrogance. What you said was really interesting, and now I am really looking forward to how powerful I will become after I eat you. As I spoke, a gate made of skulls appeared in front of me. At this moment, Hans's figure slowly walked out of it. Dozens of eerie necromancers followed. This made the hearts of the dry demons contract suddenly. What the hell are these? Jae-hoon didn't say anything and continued to inflate his body. With a bang, he swung his fist and smashed it hard at the two skeletons in front of him. Jae-hoon shouted, "Let's all die." I looked closely at his figure. This guy's body was deformed a little bit like a vampire. Didn't the vampires in each dimension look different? When I was thinking, I randomly cast a black magic spell to slap Jae-hoon flying out. Then Ah-kun waved his hand and caught his body firmly. Since it was sent to the door, then I won't be polite to you. With a thud, I opened my mouth and bit towards his neck. This scene made the liver demon panic. I was directly preying on my own kind. Wasn't I worried about mutating into a mad blood ghost? Direct predation of the same kind will indeed be very powerful spiritual pollution. At this moment, I can hear all kinds of distracting thoughts in Jae-hoon's body. It didn't take long for me to feel a frenzy, probably due to the evolution of various blood-sucking factors in the body. Sure enough, the next moment the system popped up a prompt window, and he congratulated me on getting 2 new features to see through and hide. Seeing through can directly measure the other person's physical condition and ability values. Concealment can remove traces of existence in itself and in the environment. At the same time, it also obtained a special skill hybrid evolution, and the physical ability has grown explosively. And each time you get different blood-sucking factors, you can directly get the individual's bloodline ability. Vampires have special abilities based on their bloodline, and I can steal all of their stats with my new hybrid evolution. At this moment, my arm has changed the same as Jae-hoon. This made the dry demon's face sluggish. Why did I still stay awake when I preyed on my own people? And it looked like I had completed a physical evolution. I walked over and smiled. Do you want me to tell you how to prevent spiritual pollution? It's actually very simple, as long as you don't listen to those evil thoughts when sucking blood. Then I used my ability to see through and waved my hand on the head of the dry demon. It turned out that the person behind the demon was the Brahma organization, and the one who was connected to him over there seemed to be called Beta. So it seemed that these complicated magic should all come from the Brahma organization. After a while, I took Lee Minju back downstairs in the apartment. Because he fell asleep very early, he was curious about how we escaped. Looking at his confused expression, I asked him if he knew that the person who was the mask of Hehui was the horror guy who had taken all the villains in the city in one go. I took the opportunity to escape while he attacked the dry demon. Lee Minju's eyes were dazzled with excitement. She was very grateful for my life-saving grace, and she was a blood clan from the Green Tenia dimension. It's just that her face still has a voice, and I always feel like I've seen it somewhere. Lee Minju's eyes stared at my benefactor without blinking. Big brother, which organization do you belong to? I told her that she didn't need to call my benefactor. My name was Han Chengxian. Just call me by name in the future, and I had just returned to Earth, so I didn't have an organization to belong to yet. Lee Minju was suddenly excited. She felt that I could join the Blood Alliance organization, because most of the vampires belonged to the Blood Alliance, and they basically tended to be steady, and the Blood Center could also provide fresh blood stably. I pondered for a moment and accepted her invitation. It was time to find a job for Ah-kun. When I first came to the Blood Alliance base, there was a little girl who threw herself into Lin Minju's arms, and she also looked like a vampire. As far as I know, there is no returnee on Earth so young. Lee Minju saw my confusion. The little girl's name was Nessie. She was born on Earth and grew up on Earth. Her father is the returnee who returned to Earth, and he chose to turn her into a vampire in order to cure Nessie's terminal illness. Lee Minju's words made me understand why the government strictly controls the existence of vampires. After all, vampires are very contagious, and if you are not not careful, it will not take long for more than half of humans to become vampires. Lee Minju told me that I didn't need to worry too much, because if you want to spread it on Earth, you need several times more power. And in order for Nexi to live happily in the sun after being infected, Nexi's father spent a lot of effort on this. Then Lee Minju took me to an apartment room and said that this would be my dormitory from now on, and if I had any other needs, I could find her. At this moment, I finally remembered something. Lee Minju's current gestures are very similar to those of a well-known anchor. My words made Lee Minju shy for no reason. Could it be that I am also a fan of hers? I was a little embarrassed to explain, but I didn't just go to the recommendation page. I just looked at it once or twice. In fact, Lee Minju was originally an idol trainee before returning to her old business and starting a live broadcast. I'm a little curious, how old are you now? She should be 22 years old now. She remembers that she woke up when she was 18 years old. When did you wake up? Her words made me immediately escape back to the room without looking back. What Lee Minju kept calling my eldest brother, thinking that he was really older than her. But I'm still just a 20-year-old cold man. Then I picked up my phone and searched for Lee Minju's live broadcast account. I found out that she had issued a suspension announcement not long ago. It should be to hunt down the demons and the others. She is really lucky. If it weren't for the fact that I was there, I'm afraid this would definitely be the last announcement. In the blink of an eye, it was morning, and Lee Minju's eyes were full of anxiety. Just now she got a piece of information. The colleagues of the Blood Alliance went to the scene yesterday, but it had long been burned to ashes, and no clues remained, so it would be impossible to continue to pursue the hardliners. Hearing this, I touched my mouth a little embarrassed, but fortunately, I told Hans to remove his traces before leaving. Then I asked Lee Minju a question. That is, can you tell me the address of the hardliners in order to eliminate Lee Minju's doubts? I also specially explained that since I am your friend, I must not hesitate to support the conservatives, so it would be best for me to avoid the hardliners in the future to prevent some conflicts. Lee Minju didn't suspect anything when he heard this. Immediately export a document with the address of a hardliner from the phone. The reason why I want to get this information is because Ah-kun is now at the last level of pureblood. According to the standard of the vampires on the Earth, it is probably between levels 6 and 7. Therefore, I need to use the method of predation of the same clan to make Ah-kun the purest true blood, and these hardliners are the best food. 2.5 hours later, I followed the directions on the map to find the addresses of these hardliners. Because of their stealth properties, they can't tell who killed them until their blood is sucked dry, and one of these hardliners happened to be an accomplice who was a dry demon. I saw through and got some information. It is to gather all the hardliners to an important meeting. I smiled and saw that I happened to run into a group meeting of the hardliners, which saved me from running around from house to house. After preying on some of my congeners, I gained a new trait, blood flower. If the releaser does not want to, it will burn permanently and will only burn the designated target. If it is a physical trace, it will be burned with blood flowers. If you have traces of magic, you can hide them with concealment. This way, no one can track me. Suddenly, at this moment, my heart was pounding. This feeling is familiar to me, and I guess it is about to complete the evolution again. With a ding, the system prompted me that my special skill had evolved, and the pure blood of the Blood Clan evolved into the true blood of the Blood Clan. And due to the influence of hybrid evolution, obtaining the comprehension skill blood flow amplification can increase the limit of individual recovery, and at the same time regenerate and evolve into super regeneration. At this moment, it is combined with blood flow amplification and super regeneration. The wound that was cut through the artery healed instantly. The combined effect of these two skills is simply against the sky, and if I absorb the blood around me during the battle to recover, then I will be an existence that cannot be killed. Even the true blood is so powerful. I'm afraid the legendary holy blood will be even better. After a while, I returned to the apartment, and Lee Minju had just finished the live broadcast. I told her to get an email when she came back. The content in it is roughly the evidence of the crimes of those guys. It's just that the person who signed the email is anonymous, although it is impossible to guess the identity of the person who signed the letter. But his behavior gave Lee Minju a very similar feeling to He Hui's mask. Then she was guessing something, and she only told me about the hardliners from beginning to end, and not long ago I happened to get the detailed addresses of the hardliners. She received these report letters in a blink of an eye. Could it be that I am the same group as He Hui mask? In the blink of an eye, it was evening, and at this moment Hans and I came to the place where the hardliners gathered. Through the skills of seeing through, I easily got some useful information, and some of the content of the meeting made me not expect that it would be a decision-making action against He Hui's mask. Since this is the case, it is not easy for me to hide anymore, so I asked Hans to temporarily hide in Ah-kun's shadow, and when the time comes, he will come out and wipe them all out. With a bang, I broke open the window on the first floor with an extremely strong attitude. However, the next moment is to find that there is an empty scene in front of you. How is this possible? I clearly saw them all having a meeting here. At this time, several figures slowly walked up behind him, which was originally a plan to lure the king into the urn, but he didn't expect to attract not he who's mask, but a strange-looking vampire. I stared at them intently, and in the morning I had probed some memories, and the so-called beta in the memory of the dry demon was actually a code name for the hardliners. The team leader is Alpha, followed by 2 betas and 13 gammas. In addition, there are obviously not vampires here, so they should be members of the Brahma organization. It's just that I haven't figured out what they want to do yet. The next moment, my eyes were awe-inspiring. Immediately, the blood amplification skill made the blood in their bodies boil quickly. Immediately afterwards, with a wave of his big hand, he grabbed a head nearby and preyed on it. This scene made all the vampires' bodies tremble. Why can I complete the snake hunt with just my hands, and it doesn't seem to be contaminated with any spirit? I smiled. You should survive first and then say this. At this moment, a dark shadow slowly appeared on the other side, blocking their way. Aren't you discussing how to deal with me? Why are you in such a hurry now? After making sure that all the exits were blocked, I raised my 2 paws with a smile. The next moment, 2 fiery bloody lights erupted from my palms. One of them was very annoyed. He didn't expect such a powerful existence in their blood clan. Then he spread his big hands, ready to kill me when I used my hands. With a crisp sound, I saw that my left arm was cut off by him. I sneered, "Do you have any other means?" The next moment, I released my super regeneration skill to suck the blood out of his body, and my left hand is slowly growing back. Forgetting to tell you one thing, as long as there is blood here, I will only become more and more courageous, and it will not be able to kill me completely. After saying that, I used my stealth and disappeared in front of him with a whoosh. Then when he was at a loss, an elbow hammered his back. After completing the predation of the same clan, the system prompted me to obtain a new blood-sucking factor, and blood magic evolved into a special skill, blood mystery. I can feel that I can control my abilities with my mind at this moment, and even use them more quickly and freely. My actions made the remaining beta angry. It turned out that I had mutated into a mad blood, and he said how I used these strange abilities. I plucked my ears impatiently. So what's wrong? Do you still have to stand and scream incompetently? Can't you think about it for my sake, so that my right hand can also have something to drag on? The next moment my eyes went cold, and he slowly pulled his body in front of me. At this moment, Alpha asked his men to quickly take out the crystal ball. The sphere suddenly lit up to form a 5-cornered offensive, and it attacked me randomly. At this moment, a tall figure suddenly flashed out from behind him. I saw him wave his hand, slap away these attacks very easily. Suddenly, the field fell into a dead silence, which was already the strongest trump card in their hands, but there was still no hope of winning at all. On the other side, Alpha was hiding in the shadows, his whole body shrouded in a faint glimmer of light, ready to use his space teleportation skill to leave here. 2.5 seconds later, his figure successfully came within 10 meters of the villa. It's just that because I set up the barrier in advance, he could only escape here with all his might, but he could only survive. But just as he was thinking about his next move, Hans's figure hidden in the darkness slowly appeared at this time, and I put my consciousness on Hans' body at this time. Then I stretched out my big hand and clasped his head, intending to spy on Alpha's memory through his talents in black magic. However, he didn't expect that the Brahma organization would implant a secret device in his head, but it seems that Hans's black magic is even better. The next second, I successfully entered the spiritual world of Alpha. At this time, a figure sat quietly in front of him. He bluntly stated that he was the head of the Brahma organization, Lu Lingzi, and now I have this interest and plan to join them. In that case, I would like to ask you a question, which is the purpose of your Brahma organization? Hearing this, the corners of Lu Lingzi's mouth curled slightly. Very simple. It was to ensure the freedom of the returnees and create a world completely dominated by the returnees. I frowned slightly. This goal is a bit too high for an organization that has only recently begun to emerge. Green Lindsay said otherwise. They have been laying out all the terrorist actions on the earth before, and their shadow has been there. Hearing this, I could no longer control the emotions in my heart. In other words, the death of parents and the lifelong disability of falling legs are also due to these people. At this time, my heart kept beating with anger, and at the same time, a warning window popped up, and the thought center began to take over emotion regulation due to the detection of my mood fluctuations. Lu Lingzi smiled when he heard this. These things have passed, and it is not an important thing. I hope I can make a wise choice. With a bang, I raised my fist and smashed it forward, but it was blocked by a defensive shield. This is the spiritual world, so the spiritual power will be infinitely magnified, which means that I will never be able to defeat him when fighting here. I smiled coldly. Is this a test of absolute spiritual strength? At the same time, Abu was doing Sunday prayer work in the church, and he had been a member of the Rceaps shrine for quite some time. During this period, not only did he achieve his personal goals, but he also reached the level of a high priest. And after receiving a history education here, Abu also figured out why Saint Liasta was so obsessed with Hans. A long time ago, the first generation of the undead king had died half of the continent into a land of death, although in the end, the whole country joined forces to defeat him. But the heart of the undead king was retrieved by his cronies, the Dark Magician. After obtaining this heart, the magician became the second generation of the undead king and completely destroyed the great Western Empire. In the end, the warrior chosen by the order barely broke his heart. After that, his heart was divided into 3 pieces and scattered in 3 places on the continent, because whenever there is an immortal situation, it is always the order of the Lord God that stands at the forefront. Therefore, only Saint Laister is well aware of this dark history, so it is natural to be extremely obsessed with not dying. But Abu knew Han's character very well, and he felt that Hans had no evil thoughts other than liking to be in the limelight. So after feeling Hans' needs, he did not hesitate to pass on his spiritual power to Hans. A moment later, in a mysterious castle, Lu Lingzi, the leader of the Brahma organization, suddenly spat out a large mouthful of blood from his mouth. He didn't expect that he would be defeated in this battle of mental power. In retrospect, he had a clear advantage at first, but I gradually began to grow stronger than I could control. It felt like he was facing the power of several people at the same time. He then issued an urgent order to the branch to immediately stop all actions and find a way to escape the city after destroying the information. Here, I successfully found the location of the branch of the Brahma organization, with the spiritual remains left by Lu Lingzi. No wonder I always thought I couldn't find them. They turned out to be hidden in the forest. However, by the time I came to the branch, their personnel had almost absconded. Fortunately, I arrived in time and saved some documents that were not destroyed. It details some of the crimes they have committed in the past. Among them was the city attack plan 5 years ago, and it was in that turmoil that I began to live a ruined life. At that time, I had no choice but to witness my parents lose their lives in that turmoil. But now, I have this ability to fight against the Brahma organization. However, their power has been completely intertwined in this country, and I also need to expand my power to be sure of victory. I plan to use the skill blood mystery to create a part of the blood essence first. The excess blood on Akun's body is extracted and compressed, and then implanted into the bodies of other vampires. Because this is my inherited blood, they will follow my instructions from now on. After dealing with these things, I found Li Minju and confessed. In fact, I dealt with the hardliners behind my back. In return, I want to meet the leaders of the liberals. After a while, I met Jin Huijin, the leader of the conservative faction. I will help you eradicate the hardliners in the Blood Alliance, but I will have 2 requirements. One is not to disrupt the original peaceful order on Earth, and the other is to help me completely eradicate the people related to the Brahma organization without any cover-up. I had planned that if he didn't agree to me, I would use force, but unexpectedly, Kim Haijin readily agreed and directly indicated that she wanted Li Minju to be my assistant. And after eradicating the hardliners, I will become the leader of the new faction. The reason why she agreed so easily was probably because she took a fancy to my talent, but I was very satisfied. Becoming the leader of the new faction is the first step to the core leader of the Blood Alliance. After returning to the villa, I implanted my blood-sucking factor into Li Minju. Now she feels completely reborn. After all, the blood on my body has reached the level of true blood. Then the next step is to give the new faction a name, because it is equivalent to creating a new party. I thought that since it was a name, it must have some characteristics. The vampires who received the refined blood essence mutated after absorbing my dominant factor. Then you might as well name it a mongrel faction. After Akun finalized these things, I returned to my real body. Now I suddenly thought of a question. That is, if I want to completely eradicate the Brahma organization, it may be inevitable that many wars will be launched. It would hurt innocent humans, which would go against my original intentions. So I needed a perfect way to avoid these problems. After 2.5 seconds, I thought of a solution. I can build a virtual story. Hans, the evil king who threatens humanity, cultivates evil forces and uses them to wage war. Then the bright warrior of justice Abu executes these evil organizations and becomes the heroes of mankind. This is simply a continuation of a virtuous circle. Thinking of this, I raised my hand and summoned my 5th clone. His name is Harry, and his initial trait is adaptation, which allows him to quickly adapt to the environment even in extreme situations. But I still need to find something. Then I put my consciousness on Hans. I remember that the Underground Institute of the Brahma organization conducted an evil experiment. They transplanted the body of the demon into the human body. In addition, there are many samples here. Among them is the long-extinct Dragon Clan. If Harry can fully adapt to this transplant, plus the knowledge of black magic known in the world, Harry will become the strongest physical weapon. The time soon came 2.5 days later. At this time, St. Laister felt that there was always an indescribable emotion in her heart, but she didn't think much about it, thinking that it might be caused by the thunderstorm. In fact, she didn't feel that something was wrong. At this moment in a cave not far from the Great Temple, it just so happened that a great transplant experiment was being conducted. At the same time, on the other side, Abu finally became a member of the Holy Knights. At this time, he was being awarded the Medal of Honor of the Paladin. As the divine power becomes more powerful, the system also pops up a prompt window. He reminded me that thanks to the blessing of the Lord God, god, I had successfully acquired new characteristics, and Leap Jin could travel through space at will. Immediately, I couldn't control the joy on my face. This god was really generous enough, and he gave me this ability so refreshingly. After completing the awarding ceremony, the next step is to choose the knighthood to which you belong. At this time, a knight in silver armor slowly walked up. He was a knight of the Sky Shield Knights, and his main task was to use spear techniques to be responsible for the perimeter defense of the castle. Immediately, many other knights rushed up to grab people, and the main task of the Sun Wolf Knights was to serve as the vanguard in battle, and they were very good at great swordsmanship with super destructive power. The Thunderclaw Knights are extremely skilled in swordsmanship, and their main task is to guard the castle's interior. I thought for a moment and then said my answer, "Thank you for your kindness, but I want to choose to go to all the knights to receive training. I have boneless and accelerated growth, so there is absolutely no need to limit my development. It's just that at this time, there was another knights who did not accept my joining, because they only recruit one new person every year, and this new person must be the best among the best people. After all, this knightly order is tasked with protecting the most important base areas." After a while, I followed to the place of testing. The test examiner's outfit was very strange. However, the content of the test is very simple. You only need to read the article on the table aloud, but you should pay attention to reading it clearly so that the main god can hear it clearly. At this time, I finally remembered something. This test examiner should have been temporarily pulled over to act, and his real identity is a judge at one end, so the mask on his face should be a device to filter spies. So if I am not careful, my true identity may be exposed. At this point, I could only bite the bullet and start reading the content of the article. The thrill is that this is just a simple blessing, but this is a silent blessing that does not allow the divulge of specific information. That is, I will hear or see something very important next. Otherwise, the holy cult would not be so careful. Being able to fully accept the silent blessing from the Inquisitor of Heresy means that I have successfully joined the order through the examination. It wasn't until I entered that I realized that this was the Knights of Radiance, and the important base area mentioned earlier was actually the underground space of the Great Temple. The Knight Commander reminded me to muster my spirits. This would be the first and last time I would see this thing. As he spoke, he raised his eyes and motioned to slowly push open the stone door in front of him. It's just that what I didn't expect was that the holy cult could attach so much importance to the underground space hidden in the Great Temple, and in the case of setting various prohibitions and blessings, a powerful knightly order is also deliberately left to guard strictly. It turned out to be the last fragment of the King of the Undead. I just sneaked up on a rock. The next moment, his body suddenly grew to a height of 2 meters, just because my fifth clone has successfully fused with dragon blood at this moment. And not long ago, my figure was stupidly stunned in place, which really made me not expect it. The last fragment of the Undead King turned out to be hidden in the Great Temple of Roselia. But if you think about it carefully, this doesn't seem strange. As one of the largest forces on the mainland, it is impossible for them to not recover the lost fragments for hundreds of years. Although I really want to take this fragment away immediately, there are now a total of 4 knights who are strictly protecting the Great Temple. Even if it was hands, there was no way to recover the fragments in the deepest part of the Great Temple, so you still have to come up with a foolproof plan. At the same time, the cave's secret room on the other side. My newest doppelganger, Harry, is about to complete his fusion with the dragon blood, but now there is a small accident. The experiment time seems to have exceeded the limit of super recovery. If this continues, not only will the experiment fail, even Harry is likely to die from this. After thinking about it, I finally decided to take a risk. Inject all the remaining dragon blood into it. This made Harry's eyes burst out with the aura of a true dragon. I don't know how long time has passed, but Harry is still lying there motionless. Seeing this, I just left temporarily first. After all, this place is very close to the residence of the Order of the Lord Gods, and Hans has the inheritance of the immortal king on his body, so it is not suitable to stay here for a long time. It was at this time that I was prompted to get the new feature's inherent technical growth. It will increase the number of my retained clones, immediately followed by the physical mutation characteristics. The super recovery trait evolves into a regeneration trait. Adaptive traits evolve into mutant traits. Only then did I understand, to my surprise. Unexpectedly, Harry completed the fusion with dragon blood at the last moment of the experiment, and due to the influence of mutant characteristics, Harry seems to have given birth to a new race at this time. In addition, there is one more thing worth surprised. It is an unprecedented new discovery to increase the number of clones through natural growth. But the first thing to consider is to experiment with Harry's abilities. After a while, Harry's figure appeared and came to a dense forest. At this time, I can feel that my 5 senses have become very sharp. I can even easily feel the aura of some magical beasts, and the strength of the physical body far exceeded that of the other clones. Just by fighting with your hands, you can easily kill the monster. This is much easier for subsequent strengthening, because if I want to exert the mutation characteristics efficiently, Finally, I must ingest the core magic stone in the monster's body. Immediately after hunting for the magic stone, I really evolved into a general physique through this, and I was already close to 2 meters tall at this time. And it also gets a new characteristic. No matter what food you eat, you can quickly complete digestion. With this, you can also get twice the result with half the effort. It's just because of the influence of dragon blood. Harry's food choices are more inclined to fishy raw meat, and often there is an urge to laugh wildly. To put it simply, the body looks like it has evolved, but the brain has degenerated to the level of a savage. And in this world, there are indeed savages. It seems that there is a barbarian tribal alliance in the southern part of the continent, so Harry will go over there for the time being to develop. However, if you want to reach the south, you must first pass through the Turk kingdom in the western part of the continent. This led to my large physique being a monster in the eyes of others, although I can sense that Harry's idea is to be a hero who can make an impact on the continent. This way of making an impression is still too strained, and I chose to stay in the Turk kingdom for a while because I plan to destroy the monsters in the northern mountains. The city has always been disturbed by monsters from time to time, which is very much in line with Harry's ideal of becoming a hero. The picture returns to the Order of the Lord God, and Abu successfully defeats his opponent in a row in the Knights jousting training. Because during this time, I have successfully learned all the martial arts of the Knights through hard training, and this experience in martial arts can also be used for other clones. I stumbled upon a saint alone after completing my daily training. I was a little puzzled and asked if the saint was busy with something. The saintess smiled happily, and whenever it rained, the nearby earthworms would come out to breathe fresh, and he was cheering for the earthworms and giving them some divine power appropriately. This made me think about one thing, whether the earthworm blessed by the saintess will be the same as the mutant monster in the movie. Thinking of this, I asked the saint again why she was wearing a sacrificial robe now. Could it be that there would be any activities today? The saintess nodded at me. I was right. The Order of the Lord God is about to welcome VIPs who can track down the undead king. If what the saintess said is true, then this person's existence cannot be ignored. After all, he can actually track down Hands, who covers the breath barrier. Time has come to the afternoon in the blink of an eye. I participated in this welcome event as a guardian knight. What I didn't expect, the guest of honor in the mouth of the saintess, turned out to be the high elf Lovely Granwood of the kingdom of Elven. The picture turned again to the market in the center of the kingdom. A man who looks very similar to Harry is choosing goods here. He is my 6th doppelganger, Kane. This is because the 5th clone, Harry, grew up and obtained a new clone. This guy's initial ability is called Feelings, and he can easily see the details of all items. Although the current proficiency is not very high, and you can probably only see rough and vague information, as long as this clone can continue to grow, it can definitely become a giant businessman who rules the continent in time. And before that, the first thing I need to do is eliminate all the merchants nearby who pose a threat to me. It's just that to do this, Harry's heroic influence must be large enough, and for this time I plan to cooperate with Harry and Kane's 2 clones. Harry can rely on Kane's wealth to supplement daily food and equipment, and Kane can use Harry's heroic influence to quickly collect wealth. Here Harry has successfully reached the northern mountains of the kingdom. The monster that often harasses the residents is actually a huge black bear, much taller than Harry's physique. However, if it is more physical strength, he is far inferior to me at this time. After easily defeating the black bear, I found that my body had mutated into some new abilities. Just like this, the right arm at this moment appears in the shape of a dragon's claw. In this way, you can use the magic that only monsters can have. Along with it comes a new physical temperament, which can be used to perform magic. However, as soon as I turned my head, I saw a behemoth. I didn't expect that the final boss in the northern mountains would turn out to be an ogre. One of his big feet was almost the size of my body. After seeing a kick trampling me, the ogre let out a shameful laugh. As a result, the next second he felt that his big foot was being slowly lifted by a force. At this time, my veins all over my body burst out. Do you think this is funny? Then I'll let you see something really funny later. As I spoke, my hand slammed into force. With a bang, the huge body of the ogre was suddenly lifted. Then he punched up and smashed the ogre's head. With a loud sound of falling to the ground, my body stiffened, because at this moment I could faintly smell an unbearable stench, like the smell of rotten eggs mixed with the navel. Looking at the black mist that gradually solidified in front of him, I suddenly understood in my heart it was indeed you, the guys who swore an oath against heaven. Although I don't know what they are doing in the depths of this mountain range, I can guess it even if I don't say it. In that case, I will use you as a stepping stone for Harry to become a hero. The picture returns to the Order of the Lord God again. The so-called High Elves are actually very similar to the Order of the Lords. They live in the Elven continent and worship the world tree very much. The reason why they are very similar to the Order of the Lord God is that although the gods they believe in are different, the Order of the Lord God and the Kingdom of Irwin recognize each other. The High Elves are high-ranking figures in the Kingdom of Irwin, and they probably came here to perceive and find Hands through the world tree. But what interests me more is his eyes. It really looks a bit like a star. Even Even the saintess felt very magical. This made Granwood laugh softly. In fact, his eyes were the hallmark of the high elves. Elves with these eyes need to play the role of a priest who connects the world tree with the elves. It's just that only 1 or 2 high elves will be born in an era at most. Therefore, in addition to helping find the inheritor of the immortal king, the elves actually need the help of the Order of the Lord God. Not long ago, Granwood received a revelation from the gods that a child who met the conditions of a high elf had been born on this continent, but it was soon secretly sold by slave traders as sacrifices to black magicians. So Granwood needs the help of the Order of the Lord God to find the child, and the current approximate location is in the northern mountains of the Turk Kingdom. But it is worth noting that the target person has not opened his eyes until now, so it looks more like an ordinary elf. He looks about 15 years old as a human, with pale green hair and orange eyes. This made my body stunned slightly, because of the figure in front of Harry at this moment. It looks almost exactly like what Granwood describes. At this moment, after receiving the message of the second clone Abu, I hurriedly left the cave with the high elf Rceaps on my back. It didn't take long for my figure to appear and come to the hiding place of the oath against heaven, because Rceaps told me that the storage room here had what she wanted. I looked in the direction of Rceaps' finger. It turned out to be part of the stump of the world tree. I asked Rceaps to hold it as much as possible, because the next escape journey may be difficult. The picture returns to the Order of the Lords, and after confirming that Harry has successfully rescued Rceaps, I tell Granwood that I may know where Rceaps is hiding. Greenwood couldn't help but wonder, do I also have the ability to track specific people? I quickly shook my head. Not only could I feel Rceaps' breath, but before I could finish speaking, I was directly interrupted by the Knight Commander on the side, who asked me not to say such unclear words in such a serious situation as a guard knight. And his words were interrupted by Saint Lysta raising her hand at the next moment. Lysta said she wanted to hear exactly what I had to say. On the other hand, when Harry was about to leave the station of the Oath of Heaven, an unknown creature of unknown origin suddenly emerged from underground. At the same time, my thighs also picked up the dragon's unique scales. I raised my foot and immediately kicked it with a whirlwind kick, and it smashed hard. As a result, it failed to cause any injuries to the other party. On the contrary, I also saw an extremely familiar magic circle from this guy's open mouth. I just said that the giant earthworms living in the desert, how could they appear here? It turns out that all this is the ghost of the guys who swore an oath against heaven. Thinking of this, the ideal of becoming a hero swelled up in my heart. For Harry, who wants to become a hero of the continent, what he wants to save is not limited to the human race. The next moment, I hugged the giant earthworm tightly with both hands, and then my body suddenly exerted force. Look at the figure of the giant earthworm heading away in the direction of the desert. I secretly pray in my heart that you guy won't be arrested anymore and live a good life in your own home. But this aroused my curiosity. There are so many monsters in the peripheral area that are strictly guarded. Thinking about it, they must be doing some shameful things again. At the same time, not far away, Nuvira, the elder of the oath against heaven, is watching the battle between me and the monsters. At this time, he wasn't worried about what I could make a splash here, because he arranged the plan very carefully this time. I couldn't quickly deal with so many monsters. I saw a monster's big mouth bite me suddenly. The next moment, the left arm against the big mouth was bursting with dragon scales. At the same time, I took out a spare magic stone from my bag. As long as I have this fifth clone of me, I can have endless physical strength, because as long as I eat the magic stone dropped by a certain race, then you can immediately switch to the orc form of this race. And after transforming, there is no need to control the body with the brain, and you can fight autonomously with racial instincts. For example, take the initiative to block the attack, then eat it yourself to replenish your strength. This instant made Nuvira change her mind. If I continued like this, it was only a matter of time before I broke through the encirclement. Thinking of this, Nuvira immediately signaled his subordinates to open all summoning arrays. Although it seems a pity to make it public now, this is also a way to stop me in desperation. After a while, I suddenly noticed a strange heaviness coming from my left hand. After a closer look, I was shocked to realize that a crystal bow and arrow had already penetrated directly through the wrist of my left arm. I looked back and saw several reflections of myself. At this time, a humanoid creature made of gems was slowly walking in front of him. This should be a gem cast by black magic, and I can feel extremely terrifying telekinesis from the gemstone. Before I could come to my senses, a figure suddenly appeared in midair, swooping down towards me. And this guy seems to be from the demon clan. At this moment, in the case of being attacked on his back, I couldn't support the attack of these two creatures at all. The demon said coldly, "It's better to give up, my bastard. How can a dirty orc compare with a pure-blooded ancient demon like him?" At first, I thought Harry was probably going to explain it here, but at this moment I laughed coldly. "You are right, but you guy don't know that you are about to end." As my words fell, a burst of golden light suddenly flashed in midair, and a golden cross beam suddenly took shape. At this moment, in addition to the two major creatures on the battlefield, even Nuvira, who was watching the battle, looked panicked. He didn't understand how the people of the Order of of the Lord God found out about this place. I smiled. Abu, you guy came at the right time. And not long ago, the Night Chieftain was still refuting that the saint should not act on a whim. Even the high elves could only track the approximate location, and I dared to say that I knew the specific direction. Lyasta strongly disagreed, believing that Abu was a reliable person. What's more, when I joined the Order of the Lord God had expressed his concern for me. So at this moment, I must have received some kind of revelation from the Lord God. Granwood also spoke at this time to find the child, and he was willing to trust the judgment of the guard knight. That's why Abu appeared in the depths of the northern mountains in time. Facing the demon of Nab below, he obviously restrained his posture, because the sacredness of the main god has a natural restraint for the demon race. On the other side of the gem human, he naturally has physical strength that far exceeds that of ordinary people. But it was not enough for Harry. My big hand clasped the head of the gem human. In the next second, he suddenly exerted force and crushed his head directly without mercy, and my eyes were shot by the jewel man before. Just use the gems on this guy instead. With a ding-dong system, I was prompted to successfully transplant my new body, gain the new skill, Gem-Eye Telekinesis. I laughed, which means that I can now attack from a distance. Seeing that the general trend was gone, Nuvira immediately signaled a few of his men to release the remaining monsters, and then prepare to evacuate. However, his words had just been spoken. In the next second, he was smashed through the head by a meteor hammer, because at this moment, their escape route had been blocked by the men and horses of the main god order in advance. Vera took a breath and slowly stood up. He looked at a few of his subordinates with cold eyes. They all had to die anyway, so it would be better to use your souls to sacrifice and start the final summoning formation. Immediately afterwards, strange things began to emerge around Ruvira's body. One by one, dark magic formations emerged one after another, intertwining with each other and exuding a cold aura. Then a big hand slowly stepped out of the magic circle. The creature summoned by the final formation was like the embodiment of greed, a bone demon, and the aura he exuded was very terrifying. However, as soon as this guy showed up, he was instantly killed by a divine light. The person who made the move was Latius, the Archbishop of the Holy Order. Seeing that the trouble was solved, I turned around and beckoned Cecia, who was hiding in the dark, to come out quickly. Glenwood came over and thanked me sincerely. If it weren't for my help, I'm afraid Cethia would have become a sacrifice to the black magicians. I waved my hand, but I thought it was my honor to be a glorious warrior to help Miss Cecia in the Elven Kingdom. But in the end, he couldn't stand Granwood's repeated thanks. Since you are so enthusiastic, I am happy to accept it. When Cethia heard this, I bowed my head to her. Then she leaned over slightly and imprinted her lips on my forehead. She said it was an appreciation from the high elves, and that the protection of nature would be with me ever since. Immediately afterwards, Granwood said there was an additional reward. As he spoke, he slowly handed me a bracelet woven from the leaves of the World Tree. In the future, when I need help, the Elf Kingdom will definitely help. As for the World Tree stump recaptured from the Black Magician, it was also chosen to be left to me. On the other hand, with Abu's matchmaking, Harry's performance also received goodwill from the Order of the Lords. At the moment, as long as Harry helps Kane with fame, he can become an independent businessman. After resolving these matters, the Order of the Lord of God formally appealed to Granwood. It is for the peace of this land to ask the Elven Kingdom to help them find the inheritor of the undead king. After saying that, Granwood slowly resonated with the World Tree. Because of the existence of the World Tree, Granwood, as a high elf, can easily feel all the breath of the world. But in addition to that, he needed a little help. That is, he wanted to know what kind of aura the king of the undead was. After a while, our group appeared in the great temple, and I looked at the holy law barrier laid out around me, and my original thoughts were even more firm. With my current strength, there was no way to break through this great temple, and this time the journey is different from the first time I came in. It should be that the order can get lost and bypass when bringing outsiders in. So even if you know the specific route and break the holy law barrier that defends here one by one, it is also necessary to have room to deal with all the paladins and archbishops who come after them. Seeing that Granwood was using the last fragment of the undead king, trying to resonate with the World Tree, I suddenly had an idea in my heart. Maybe there was a way to save hands. At the same time, the meeting hall of the cadres, who defy the oath against heaven. The meeting recalled the heads stationed across the continent, except for the elder Nuvira, who remained in the northern mountains, although it is not known how the Order and the High Elves found Nuvira. But this is indeed a wake-up call to the dark magicians, that there is still an unknown and extremely dangerous existence in the dark. With the addition of the village chief who has one of the undead fragments, Nuvira, who is highly hidden, has now been killed. So now they decided to interrupt the original plan. Instead, he focused all his attention on the inheritance of the immortal king. I turned my consciousness back to hands above, since they relied on the fragments of immortality to find their location. So as long as I hid the fragments, I didn't have to worry about these problems. As for the hiding place, it is probably in the subspace I made. It's just that no matter how hard I try, I can't put the fragments into subspace. Then I thought that as an awakened person, it seems that I can return to the blue star with the fragments. So just turn my body into a subspace, and then put the fragments into the body. In this way, I can merge with the fragments. You can also use the power of fragments anywhere, and it can also perfectly hide the traces of fragment power. Immediately afterwards, I raised my hand and waved to remove all the barriers in the cave that were used to hide the breath. In this way, the aura that had remained everywhere before would completely explode in the cave. Then the guys of the Order of the Lord God will definitely send a large number of people to surround this place. At that time, I will take advantage of their defenses to sneak into the great temple and seize the last piece of immortality in one fell swoop. At this time, Granwood successfully explored the aura of the undead king through the world tree. The approximate location is in the monster forest, not far from the main god order. Hearing this, Archbishop Latius immediately began to summon all the paladins under his command, and specially invited all the other bishops who could act at the moment. At the moment, even the Ray Paladin, who has rarely performed missions out, heard the news and rushed over. You must know that he is one of the most revered bishops in the great temple. St. Lyesta also expressed her desire to follow along. Latius shook his head and refused, because the saintess was the pillar of the main god order, and unless there was some emergency, she had to be stationed at all times. As for my words, I still protect the great temple with the saintess as a guard knight, because Abu's performance in the northern mountains can be said to be very good. The archbishop felt that he could give the young knight some opportunities appropriately. So my task this time is to keep in mind to protect the safety of the saint. I nodded solemnly to the archbishop. You can set off with confidence. I will listen to this and protect the saint at all times. After bidding farewell to the expeditionary order, I asked the saints to worry too much, because I can guarantee that they will return safely. The saintess looked at me with a determined look, and then felt a little relieved. In his opinion, this may be some hints given to me by the Lord God. Here, Hans's figure has come to the periphery of the Order of the Lord God. To my surprise, even more than 10 kilometers away from the great temple was covered with holy law enchantments, and it was impossible to crack them one by one in a short period of time. In that case, change plan B. Fortunately, Hans deliberately left an immortal breath in several places before he came. So at this moment, after detonating these breaths, those guys in the order are estimated to have a long time to come back. After a while, the knights who left behind to guard the city widened their eyes, because they are seeing a scene that they have not seen for many years. At this moment, countless puppets with the aura of black magic were pouring into the bishop's city. Time came late at night in the blink of an eye. The archbishop successfully found the cave's secret room, according to the traces of the breath. But after searching all the places carefully, they couldn't find any trace of the inheritor of the undead king. This result made Granwood almost doubt life, and the world tree told him that there was nothing wrong with this person being here, and if this guy moved, the world tree would prompt him immediately. Archbishop Latius instantly reacted. If this guy knew about their plan, he used some tricks to hide his breath. Thinking of this, Latius immediately summoned all the staff to rush back to the great temple. These were all blinding tricks at the moment, and at this moment, he could only secretly pray in his heart that the guard knights would be able to hold on until they rushed back to the station. The city of the Order had long been completely occupied by Hans' puppet army. I took advantage of the chaos to successfully infiltrate the great temple where the fragments were stored. Feeling the breath coming from the fragments, the corners of my mouth slowly curled up. Now it's time for the undead king to come back to the world. At the same time, the knights were rapidly supporting the frontal battlefield. I pretended to watch, but I was thinking about the next plan. The archbishop gave me the task of guarding the safety of the saint, so I could choose to stay in the courtyard and see if I could go to support him. However, I was still surprised that there were so many knights left in the garrison, and there were many knights I had never seen before. But I don't need to worry. Hans has successfully infiltrated the grand temple at this moment. But at this moment, a golden bullet shadow slowly emerged, and he signaled that only 30% of the people needed to be left to deal with the undead here, and the rest were to rush back to the sealing room of the great temple immediately. And at this moment, the aura belonging to the inheritor of the immortal king appeared there. This was completely unexpected to me, and I forgot that there were still heretical inquisitors in the Order of the Lord God. Thinking of this, I quickly took advantage of the chaos to sneak into the knights of these reflexive temples. At the same time, the saintess and the others had already appeared on their way to the great temple. St. Lyesta said that she did not feel any signs of intrusion from the outside from beginning to end, which means that the other party used space to move inside. This made Lyesta shudder. The other party had arrived, and he was still unaware. If the immortal king is really resurrected, I'm afraid it will be difficult to seal it again. This side after getting information that the Inquisitor was about to join the battlefield. I threw myself into Hans and recalled Tom's as soon as possible. Since Tom's was an extremely powerful black magician during his lifetime, even if he became an undead creature, he still had terrifying combat power. After confirming that the Inquisitor at one end had died with Tom's, I went into the sealing room again. Although some small accidents inevitably occurred occurred in the process, but in the end, I managed to get my hands on the last piece of immortality. Surprisingly, however, this piece doesn't resonate with me as directly as the first two. At this moment, I have a feeling of incompleteness in my body, and I guess that maybe it will take some time for the fragments to fuse. At this moment, two figures in silver armor rushed up towards me. I slowly condensed a dark magic in my palm. The anti-gravity effect directly makes their bodies lose control. Seeing this, Abu signaled that it was time for the saint herself to join the war. Lysta grabbed Abu. Now you must not rush forward. You need to analyze the opponent's combat power first, and then arrange strict tactics. At this time, I looked at these guys in front of me coldly, and persuaded them to give up. Sooner or later, the inheritance of the immortal king will return to its original owner. And if you don't back down, don't blame me for making a heavy move. Suddenly, my body was attacked by several golden sword shadows. Recognize that this is a singing skill from the saint. If it weren't for Han's characteristic ability, instantaneous regeneration, it would have been really dangerous just now. So in order to avoid casualties, I could only make a quick decision, thinking that I waved my big hand to pretend to attack the position of the saint. And the guys who left assistance, their strength should not be underestimated. Not only can you make a defensive posture right away, it can even quickly counterattack. They are sure that I won't hit them. Could it be that someone has seen through my strategy and won't kill innocents here? Thinking of this, I immediately used black magic to probe the inside of these people's brains. Sure enough, the bishop next to the saint has the ability to see through the inner thoughts of others. They also learned at this moment that I had not yet fully merged with the fragments, and in order to prevent my rapid regeneration characteristic, I also used eternal singing and continuous attacks at the same time. But it's all obvious tricks for me. Hans's combat experience can be said to be the richest among my clones, so not to mention their fighting methods, I have long known them through Abu. So I first used the binding magic to imprison the two main attack knights in front. This will delay the time to the greatest extent. After a while, the other party finally noticed the abnormality. How could there be an illusion? I always seem to be able to accurately predict their next move, but it was already too late at this time. So I smiled and thanked you for playing games with me here. Now the fragments in my body have completely merged into one. Lysta understood that I wasn't joking, and he could indeed feel the full aura of the undead king in me at this moment. With a ding-dong, the system popped up a prompt panel, successfully experienced and overcame death, and completed the final transcendence through domination. I have been recognized by the undead king and successfully inherit. In the disaster of the Antrika dimension, Hans successfully turned into the new undead king. The Knight of Peen motioned for everyone to calm down immediately, and now there is still a glimmer of life, and the sealing room is actually the Holy Spirit space. In other words, there is a power here that can suppress the undead king, so there is still a chance to kill me right now. Hearing this, I suddenly felt a little ridiculous, because after being reincarnated as the king of the immortal, I achieved achievement reward immunity and died instantly. There is also a special skill that the corrupted heart evolves into an undead heart. In other words, I am simply invincible now. I put my big hand directly on my face, then slowly let go and opened his eyes at the same time. This is my new skill, Eye of the Abyss. Anyone who looked at me would immediately fall into fear and confusion. And after becoming the king of the undead, previously dead undead creatures can be resurrected directly in place without entering subspace to repair. It can even be combined into a very terrifying corpse puppet. I pretended to be annoyed. You guys are really boring. If you beg me for mercy now, I can still give you a good time. Saint Lysta was extremely hesitant in her heart at this time, and she, as a saint of the order, could never back down. She gritted her teeth secretly, and she had already made up her mind in her heart. Lysta freed the necklace and handed it to Abu. It means that this is a token of the saintess of the order, and as long as she is still in the order, it will never disappear. So take her out of here now, and then come back to seek revenge on the undead king after you become strong enough. After saying that, she turned around and motioned to all the knights from now on. All will need to do everything in their power to open the way for the Knights of Ab. Here I continued to feign anger on my face. You damn bugs are really disgusting. Aren't you really afraid that I will kill you all in one go? However, the next moment, a big fist slammed into my face. I looked at Abu and smiled. Although your movements are very agile, the sword in your hand is too blunt to pierce me. As I said that, I raised my big palm to condense the sword energy, and the magic blasted towards Abu. This made Abu's face instantly look painful, but in fact, he praised my good acting skills in his heart. But in fact, the sword chi magic only slightly pierced the armor. With Abu joining the battlefield, I can let go of my fists and feet to fight at this time. This scene made Saint Lysta feel extremely puzzled. Obviously, there was already a chance to escape, but why did the Abu Knight still choose to give up his body? Abu replied slowly that the reason why he did not choose to escape alone was because he joined the order, and he was not saved to survive in the world, rather than despicably leaving his companions who fought with their lives. It's better to stay upright and sacrifice yourself to protect the world. What's more, Archbishop Latius specifically instructed him to protect the safety of the saints faint at all times before leaving. At this moment, Abu's power of faith has reached an unprecedented level. The system prompts him to successfully obtain the third special blessing lightsaber. In an extremely dazzling golden light, I could only see Abu's figure slowly approaching the undead king. I watched Abu sincerely praise his acting skills as a really good thing. According to the plot of the movie, it was to say goodbye to the audience after the climax of the war. So then my slightly weak voice slowly came. I really didn't expect there to be a strong person like you in the Order. The Knight of Abu is indeed an opponent worthy of the memory of the immortal king, and I will always remember your name. After saying that, I lifted my defensive stance and ate the lightsaber blessing in front of me without reservation. A dinging system prompts me to trigger the immunity to death trait due to fatal damage. After a while, only the participation of the undead king was left on the field. Abu pretended to be very tired at the moment and gasped, "Damn it, I didn't expect this guy to escape." But his previous extraordinary performance has long been deeply imprinted in the hearts of others, because in such an emergency situation, he was able to accurately hit the heart of the immortal. This made everyone wonder if the Knight of Abu was really the second coming of the Chosen One. Here I returned to the consciousness of the main god, first in the forest to become the immortal Hands, and then to the Abu Knight who was blessed by the main god and defeated Hands, the perfect hero and the demon king hostile structure. So this is really a very interesting heroic story. Then I opened the system panel. I found that my store points at this time directly increased by about 8 million. After strengthening exclusive skills, new features were successfully unlocked. The image can be customized according to the user's requirements. As the name suggests, I can freely DIY the external image of these clones, which is simply like the game world. It can be broadly divided into two different functions. They are the creation of clones and the modification of clones. Modifying the clone can independently change the appearance and stats of the original clone. As for the latter creation clone, you can get a chance to set your appearance and abilities. The biggest difference between the two should be gender. I looked at the gender selection button in front of me and persuaded myself that I didn't have any strange thoughts. I just want to confirm in detail what the difference is between the two, but the hand involuntarily pointed to the female button. Then, to my surprise, the system prompted me that I could not choose that gender. I continued to look at the selection window below and found that this selection medium was very interesting to me, and it was necessary to use a specific medium to give birth to the relevant race. I guess this should be a medium related to the desired race, so the stump of the world tree that Sethia left me before might come in handy. So I took out the stump and slowly placed it in the media window. Ding-dong system prompted that the breath of the world tree was detected. Related race elves are successfully created through the use of specific mediums. Since it can be customized now, you might as well replace this new clone with a handsome face and a slender figure. As for the most important ability values, they must all add points to the natural affinity. If you call it Harris, it's called Harris. Next, let's start writing the legend of the mercenary king of the continent. The picture returns to the new hero of the mainland, Harry, because with the help of the knights, Harry has become a well-known hero in the northern city. Now that the monster troubles in the northern mountains have been solved, the only thing left for me to use is the southern region. As long as I become a southern warrior, I can use this to carry forward my fame. It just so happened that my outfit made several southern soldiers dissatisfied with me, because I can only wear this dress during traditional celebrations. I'm a little wondering, haven't you been wearing this lately? These words made the other party's emotions instantly out of control, and I was really a stupid and ignorant savage. Now he is going to formally propose to me the traditional duel of the southern regions. I have no intention of refusing at all, okay? But I have a condition. It's not that you will go together later. My words directly surprised several people, and they dared to ask for more and less fighting. I am deliberately insulting the reputation of the southern warriors. I chose to take a step back and talk, and if it didn't work, the two of us would go together. Then the remaining person will be responsible for lifting the two who are about to fall. The scene after a moment was exactly the same as what I said. The man who didn't fight slowly raised his finger at this moment. This guy is not a southern citizen at all, because I have such powerful fists and feet, but I don't have the mark of a warrior on my body. I touched my head innocently. Please don't talk like this. I am an indigenous citizen of the South like you, and there is a reason why I didn't mark it. It was 20 years ago, when our clan was fighting a duel to choose the next chief, and my father was the best warrior in the tribe, so there was no accident that he won the final victory. According to tribal tradition, the former leader would grant a wish he had made. At that time, my father could be said to be very bold, and he even proposed in public that he was unwilling to marry the team leader's daughter. But he then said that he had a reason that could not be ignored. It is that he and the team leader's daughter are blood brothers and sisters. Then everyone didn't expect that the patriarch did not deny this statement, but admitted that what my father said at that time was true. In fact, the team leader did not have a biological daughter because of his own health, and now this daughter was adopted by him many years ago. But his father's choice to speak out about this scandal in public also made him murderous. My mother was pregnant at the time, and I couldn't help my father fight. In order to protect my mother and me, who was not yet born, my father led all his tribal warriors to fight alone, and finally all died heroically. After my mother threw off the pursuers with difficulty and finally escaped to a remote cave, I was raised there. Not so long ago, after the current death of illness, I came to the southern city alone, so that's why I don't have marks on me. After hearing my words, several big men immediately fell into deep grief, but they didn't expect that there would be such a tear-jerking story in such a peaceful era. Then they kept my body. At this moment, they felt that they were simply damn in front of them, and they apologized for calling me a barbarian before. This made me secretly happy in my heart, thanks to the help of Hans and Abu to practice before. Otherwise, my acting skills would really not be as free as at this time. The picture comes to the Elven Kingdom of the continent of Irwin, where Heli successfully arrives and registers as an official member. It's just that there were some small accidents in it, and under normal circumstances, the elves could only perceive the spirit form of the World Tree. But I saw an elf-like figure exactly. Granwood told me that it was actually the World Tree Lord that the elves admired, but she rarely showed people in this form, and this situation shows that the World Tree is very concerned about me. It shocked me. Could it be that after the main god, even the World Tree of the Elf Kingdom is now interested in me? The city commercial street on the other side. Kane has some minor troubles here. Since I opened a shop here, there have always been some gangsters who come to find fault with various reasons every day. But this will only last for a short time, because every time Harry takes action to help me solve it, and because Harry's fabricated story is so touching. Harry also managed to make friends with the Southern Warriors. At dinner, the Southern Warriors suggested that Harry could wear the exclusive mark of the Southern Warrior on his body. Just like his body, this symbolizes that he is an amazing Southern Warrior. And now it just so happens that a sorcerer from the south who can tattoo marks appears in the Tarek commercial street. When I came to Tarek, according to the instructions, just in time for the sorcerer Lola to be forcibly charged protection fees by street gangsters, I just raised my arm and elbowed it hard. After dealing with these troubles, I expressed my intention to Lola, hoping that she could help me make a mark for the Southern Warrior. Naturally, Lola did not refuse this. It's just that although the mark can bring me a lot of extra power, it will also greatly consume my physical life force. So I can think carefully before making a decision. However, after a while, Lola changed her mind. In fact, what she said earlier did not apply to me, because she had not met many Southern warriors with such vigorous vitality. And perhaps at this moment, she could break the precedent and engrave the top Do King mark for me. Hearing this, I immediately made a decision. Then, according to your idea, tattoo me with the top Do Wang mark. But Lola immediately said that it was just her idea, because it was a technology that no one had been able to do for hundreds of years. In that case, please tattoo me with a war-style mark. As a result, Lola rejected it again, because she didn't have enough materials in her hand now, and she hadn't given a tattoo mark for many years. What's more important than this, soldiers who want to get tattooed need to have enough performance. And the great warrior mark I want to tattoo is at least to climb over the northern mountains of the steel-walled city, then go and try to kill the giants there alone. As soon as the words fell, Rooney's body trembled violently. Although this doesn't sound very complicated, if you really want to do it, it is impossible for anyone to do it alone. You must know that the guy's head is the size of an ordinary person's body. At this moment, I slowly took out a big man from my bag. Is the giant you're talking about this guy in my hand? Lola immediately eased her expression, and at this moment she recognized that what I was holding was the giant's skull, so I hunted it alone. I nodded when I heard this, of course, and it wasn't a hassle for me at all. Seeing this, Lola asked me to come back to her in a few days, because the inscription mark is also a very physical thing for the sorcerer. So these days he needs to replenish his physical strength as much as possible. Hearing this, I asked her to have a good rest, and the food was left to me. After a while, my figure appeared in the residence of the street gangsters. At my kind request, I successfully got a large box of meat food from them. I refound the sorcerer with my full bag. This immediately reminded Lola of her son. This guy of mine is really speechless, and if her son was still alive, he would be about the same age as me. But she can't bite this meat at this age. But for the sake of my sincerity, she reluctantly tastes it. To my surprise, Lola is probably in her 60s, and her frame doesn't look big. But the amount of food she ate shocked me, and it was estimated that no other clone of mine except Harry could eat it. Lola raised her hand to gently wipe the soup from the corner of her mouth, and now that her physical strength has almost recovered, please prepare me for the Venk mark. I lay on the bed smiling with a relaxed face. At this time, I had to fantasize about the good days after becoming a Southern soldier. But then Lola said that she was in trouble. That is, my skin was too hard, and the needle and thread used for tattooing couldn't be inserted at all. Fortunately, Lola is not an ordinary sorcerer. When she was young, she had represented her tribe in battle. It didn't take long for me to get a prompt from the system to congratulate me on getting the Calc-style battle mark. And now, I've been marked as a Southern warrior. The Great Warrior mark is indeed different from the normal mark. mark. For example, his color is not the usual black. Instead, it was a very eye-catching bright red, which looked like a sun that was always shining. And the improvement it gave me was also very huge, even without using the physical mutation trait at this time. I was confident enough to deal with the northern giant with my bare hands. After completing the initial pattern carving work, the sorcerer Lola's body also fainted due to lack of physical strength, so I immediately turned around and asked Rooney to help me do something. It's getting those guys to send more meat. After all, the current tattoo is just a rough prototype. As soon as the picture turned, the main goddess of the Order of God, Lyasta, was still praying for Abu every day. Although Lyasta had been praying here for many days, she could not go to rest normally, because until now, she still can't forget the figure of Abu protecting everyone at the last moment. In the face of the undead king who almost destroyed the entire continent, Abu did not even flinch a step. It gave her the feeling that the Lord God had said, maybe Abu was really the second coming of the Chosen One. At this moment, I finally woke up from my coma. I told them not to worry too much, and there was nothing wrong with my body at this time. Lyasta slowly grabbed my hand at this moment. After so many days of thinking, it was decided to recommend me as a saint of the Order of the Lord God. This made my heart happy, and I finally waited for this day, because at this moment, Abu was finally chosen as the protagonist of the confrontation with the Demon King. The picture then came to hands. After learning that Abu had been chosen as a warrior of the kingdom, I secretly made up my mind. Now that the warrior has been born, it is time for me as the Demon King to fulfill my obligations. Just continue my villain punishing plan with the contagious charm magic honed to perfection during this time. Subsequently, the legend about He Hui's mask was once again set off on the Blue Star. In a short period of time, many villains have been punished extremely severely. However, this also attracted the attention of the Black Arts Division of the Ability Management Area. After detailed testing, they found that He Hui mask was a very scary guy. The black magic possessed by He Hui's mask has long been far beyond the scope of human understanding, and those with superpowers who have been invaded by his black magic will eventually become slaves who obey He Hui's mask. So instead of being targeted by such a terrifying guy, it is better to die directly. Even the strongest black magician in H country has to admit that He Hui's understanding of black magic is far higher than his. Then he tentatively cast tracking magic on the black magic mark I left. As a result, the next moment he was completely shocked on the spot. It felt like he was drowning at the moment, because at this moment, He Hui's mask saw his face through the magic imprint reverse tracking. In other words, he is likely to pass away soon. After all, none of the guys who were targeted by He Hui's mask had a good end. Here I was staring at this guy in the dark, although I shared some of my negative emotions with Hands. But Hands will always only take action against bad guys. But I don't feel any evil from this guy. Maybe I can find a chance to meet him alone. Since then, Hands' popularity on the internet has risen to unprecedented heights. Many people even took advantage of this to set up a fan support club in the name of He Hui mask. But I didn't feel happy about it. If Han's fame continued to rise, then it would definitely cause trouble for the next plan. Suddenly, a knock on the door interrupted my thoughts. After opening the door, I found out that Jiang Taishan was working in the supernatural administration. He can be said to be my only friend on Blue Star. Because of his previous foot disability, Jiang Taishan took good care of me in daily life. But after being able to walk upright, we have much less contact, because since then, Jiang Taishan has often worked extra overtime because of He Hui's mask incident. And just as we were chatting, Jiang Taishan suddenly said that I felt that my personality seemed to have changed a lot. I was a little surprised, and then explained that maybe I was starting to look forward to life. And after regaining my life, I can't keep dwelling on the past, and my parents probably don't want me to be as depraved as before. Jiang Taishan felt that what I said was very reasonable, and since he had said it, he had to admit how worried he was about me before. Hearing this, I thanked him with a sincere expression. After all, he was the only one who still regarded me as a friend during the most difficult time of my life. Jiang Taishan waved his hand and then said his plan to come to visit me today, because from a very young age, we have developed a deep friendship. So after my parents had an accident, he entered the Criminal Investigation Division of the Supernatural Administration. After investigating the case of my parents' accident, it was judged to be a terrorist activity of the awakened without a specific target. Almost everyone thought so at the time, but some recent events have changed everyone's mind again, and now it is found that there is an organization that started terrorist activities a long time ago. It seems that what is called Fan Tianhui. They are very cautious in their work and will not leave any traces of the crime, so they have not been able to find any clues so far. Until recently, a mysterious man named He Huijia who became popular on the internet guessed that there should be something worth scrutinizing in this guy. So on this trip, in addition to stopping by to visit me, I also really want to complain about this Supernatural Management Bureau with me. Obviously, this He Huijia is a great hero who eliminates harm to the people, but why waste time trying to catch the other party? I just nodded after hearing this. Yes, big heroes shouldn't be treated like this. After that, Jiang Taishan brought the topic back to to me again, and he persuaded me not to think about becoming a writer in the future, because the plot of the hero's victory over the Demon King is too old-fashioned. After carefully reading my draft, Jiang Taishan suggested that I could change Han's character to Hannibal or something like that. In this way, the reader will look more emotional. After saying that, Jiang Taishan saw that it was not early, so he was ready to get up and leave. And before leaving, he still told me something. Grandma's situation is not very good at the moment, and he told me that it was best to be mentally prepared during this time. Immediately, my heart felt empty. When I was a child, I often felt the love from Grandma Jiang. She is a very kind old man, and for me, she is one of the few relatives worthy of my closeness, just like Jiang Taishan. For a long time, no matter how hard Jiang Taishan worked, he would come over to guide me, but I couldn't help Grandma Jiang with anything. Suddenly, at this moment, I suddenly remembered something very important. It seems like one of my clones can help. If you want to cure a disease, you need a healer similar to a priest, and Abu meets this condition. Now he is already the chosen one recognized by all the order of the Lord God. It's not easy to bring him back to Blue Star. After all, if he disappears immediately after becoming an official hero, it will definitely cause some unnecessary misunderstandings. The picture turns to the city of La Pira, where the Ella siblings are walking on their way to the academy. My second clone, Akon, also came here at the same time. Ella was very excited when she saw me, and I hadn't come to visit them for a long time. I smiled and said that I had some things to do recently, so I couldn't make some time until now. After Ella corrected her expression, she asked me to tell the truth. Did I suddenly come here to see if I was in trouble? Seeing this, I will no longer hide it. I took out a gold coin from my pocket to indicate that I needed to hire her again, and I needed her to give me some information. After a while, my figure returned to the villa, and Li Minju looked at the table full of rare treasures with a shocked expression. She couldn't figure out where I got these things from. This is actually thanks to the little girl Ella, who was able to find me a good quality and very cheap magic prop shop in the La Pira market, which is famous for its magic props. By now, the remnants of the old vampire who needed to be liquidated were almost solved. However, in addition to these, there are also anchors hidden in the capital city of La Pira. Then I followed the information provided by Ella to find their Blockslark base in La Pira, and I saw an extremely familiar figure here. It was Helen, the vampire who had patrolled the precinct with me before. As my voice sounded, I also slowly relieved myself of the stealth skill, but because Helen drank too much, she couldn't recognize me immediately, so I could only burst out the power of the bloodline in my body. This directly made Helen's whole person sober up. I can freely control other people's blood. I am at least the power of the bloodline at the level of true blood. But even so, this is Blockslark's private domain, and even if I am in the true blood realm, I have violated the invasion agreement. I saw that Helen really didn't recognize me, so I decided to do it, and then I said that he actually misunderstood. In fact, I was from Blockslark's collateral vampire. Hearing this, Helen suddenly remembered that there had indeed been a division that had been persecuted before. Seeing her gradually hesitant, I continued to coax her into saying that she was the descendant of the Ponzi clan, she thought. So as long as she can cooperate with me obediently, I will share her power from the true blood vampire. Then I took advantage of her unpreparedness and grabbed her head, then directly melt his own true blood into the other party's body. Helen's body suddenly became strange, and she felt that while her own strength was churning, her master seemed to have changed. After thoroughly washing my blood, I asked her for all the information about Blockslark. It turns out that the manager here is also a true blood vampire named Praja, and all of her abilities are to have a pair of magic eyes. At the same time, she is enjoying her holiday time in a private estate. She likes to watch civilians work hard to survive in her spare time, and the reason why she has this hobby is because the Order of the Lord God has recently expanded its power in La Pira, but she doesn't worry about it, because the nobles in this city have been replaced by members of Blockslark disguised as humans. But just when she was complacent, she suddenly felt a strange aura. At this time, I had successfully found her private estate based on intelligence. This made Praja sigh helplessly. The mere residual blood came to find fault without knowing the height of the sky, and it felt like I was not a member of Blockslark. As she spoke, her pupils suddenly exuded an incomparably sharp edge. But today's Akun is already a standalone existence. It was standing there quietly and easily bounced off the magic eye. I persuaded Praja to give up, because I knew her most proud killer move, and now she is the guy who doesn't know the height of the sky to me. This directly made Praja extremely angry and crushed the wine glass in her hand. What was the purpose of this guy coming to Blockslark? I replied thoughtfully, "Isn't the situation in front of me very obvious to you? I want everything you have in Blockslark." Praja was relieved to hear this, because even if her magic eye didn't work on me, what you need to know is that she is also a true blood vampire, so her strength will not be inferior to mine. As she spoke, she punched me hard in the stomach. This was beyond my expectations, and I was careless for a while, thinking that she would only use magic attacks. But I didn't expect that her main stunt was actually a physics fight. In the face of the offensive, I can only choose to dodge the defense first. These are not tricks, and if you get hit like this, it will definitely hurt terribly. So I pretended to finally collapse to the ground exhausted, and the acting skills I practiced finally came in handy. At this moment, in the face of Praja's all-out blow, I did not choose to back down. The next moment, Praja's expression suddenly changed, because the cuts on my neck are slowly being repaired right now. You must know that almost no one can withstand her attack at the same level without being defenseless. I smiled at this. I have to admit that you are indeed a very powerful opponent, of course. There are still some shortcomings in other places. As long as you can bow to me, I can make you stronger than you are now. Gyulagia's mood has obviously changed, but she still gritted her teeth and refused to admit the facts in front of her. Seeing this, I continued to say to myself, since I don't want to believe it, then look down and take a good look at the current situation. At this moment, a huge blood array appeared within the range of our fighting. Before, I seemed to be blindly dodging, but in fact, I was using the blood on the ground to make the blood demon formation. Because I was not a qualified fighter from the beginning. On the contrary, I can say that I am an opponent who is extremely proficient in blood magic. It can even force the injection of serum into the true blood of the same realm. Gyulagia felt an unbearable injury on his neck, but she didn't feel that her life force was being lost, but felt that the power in her body was constantly churning. At this time, she was very puzzled about what I had done to her. I guided her to try to feel it, and at this time, the changes in her body, muscle explosiveness, flexibility, etc. have evolved. Only then did she realize that I could indeed make her stronger. But since then, she has lost her absolute right to freedom, because from now on her body can only act at my command. After all, the serum flowing into her body comes from the subordinate of my blood. The reason why I went to such lengths to go around was not wasting time. Above Praja, there is another more powerful vampire named Cranrod. On weekdays, only Praja knows the traces of this guy. In a moment, I arrived at the Duke of Bright's mansion, where Cranrod was located. In fact, before I came, Cranrod felt a change in the taste of blood on Praja. After all, he was the previous master of Praja's service, so as soon as he saw Praja, he had an undisguised murderous intent. I pulled Praja directly behind me. What a pity. Originally, I came here to solve the matter in a peaceful way, but you actually want to hit my people hard next time. Cranrod sneered, not to mention the person who snatched him. Let's just say that if I step into the Brock's slack field now, he will feel very angry. It is bound to keep me and Praja here forever. After saying that, he waved his hand and directly summoned all the vampires in Blockslark. But soon he seemed to have an imperceptible panic. Why was there only this number of vampires in front of him? He asked with an irritated look what Praja had done. Praja could only bite the bullet and say that not long ago, a large part of the team chose to join me. This really made Cranrod wonder why his subordinates would gladly accept the blood of their new master without any resistance. You must know that this is no different from contemporaries. Thinking of this, Cranrod should have a blood spell that belongs only to the Department of Rockslack. Enemies in this enchantment will not only feel twice the amount of pressure, but they will also not be able to use any vampire magic. Instead, his vampires can freely attack inside. So at this moment, Cranrod signaled his other true blood Abel to completely solve me. But just when Abel was about to touch me, his body suddenly stopped its offensive stance, because at this moment, binding magic appeared on him. He couldn't understand why I was able to cast magic at will in the Bloodmancer's enchantment. The next moment, I directly used the acceleration feature to fight Abel in midair. Cranrod's eyes were full of shock when he saw this scene, knowing that Abel was the true blood vampire with the strongest agility attribute under his command. But my speed actually looked equal to that of Abel, and after Praja joined the fight, Cranrod found that even Praja could easily catch up with Abel's speed at this time. And before that, he solved the other subordinates alone. He couldn't figure out where Praja got his powers from. At the same time, my figure had already come to him, and I said coldly, "Do you still have the mind to think about this now?" Cranrod immediately looked confident. It was absolutely impossible for me to dodge his attack in this blood sorcerer barrier. And then he was faced with my undisguised laughter, but I never thought about avoiding it from the beginning. After saying that, I took advantage of Cranrod's stunned moment and clasped his neck tightly. It's a pity that I forgot to tell you one thing in advance, and any part of the body can be completely repaired immediately. Cranrod watched my arm regenerate instantly. At this moment, he finally understood what kind of terrifying monster he was facing. I then slowly loosened the shackles on Cranrod. Don't be so afraid, because I didn't intend to kill you from the beginning. What makes me even more jealous is the boss position behind you. At the same time, an unknown underground chamber. A woman in a luxurious costume slowly sat up. Her identity seems to be the ancestral vampire of the holy blood level, because at this moment, she felt that her children seemed to be in some trouble. The picture returns to the Duke of Bright's mansion. All the members of the Brook's Slack, including Cranrod, became my loyal blood. Cranrod said that from now on I am the new owner of this place. This immediately caused my dissatisfaction. Cranrod, you guys have to change your habits, and you can't use comments when reporting to me in the future. But I have to say that with Cranrod's help, I can be much more relaxed. After all, he can be said to be extremely loyal to me now. And and not much worse than my previous guess. Although the vampire who forcibly injected the serum into the realm of true blood would put a lot of pressure on me. But if you suck blood at the same time, you can reduce their level to a great extent. So far this purge operation is basically done. It was as if becoming a vampire in a daze still seemed to happen yesterday. But now I am indeed sitting in the leadership position step by step from the bottom. But my ambitions don't end there. Things on Bloxrock's side can continue to be handled by Cranrod. The general direction of the subsequent process is to establish this place as the most powerful intelligence organization on the mainland. Then I threw myself back into the main body. After the second clone Akon successfully completed the task, I got a lot of bonus points again. I thought it would be better to strengthen my exclusive skills this time. With a ding, the system prompts that the growth rate of individual clones will be faster and faster as the media selection skills are strengthened. In addition, a new feature has been unlocked. An individual projection can project a random clone onto the user, which can only be used once a day. It shocked me instantly if I didn't understand this wrong. In other words, all the power I have gained in the clone during this time can be used directly on the main body. The undead King Hans, the Holy Knight Abu, and the True Blood clan Akon. There are also Harry Kane and Harris who are growing. At this time, I can become one of these clones every day. I can probably imagine what it will be like in the future. Thinking about the appearance of two He-Hui masks on the blue star made me feel very excited. But Hans mainly used black magic, and if he was not careful, it was likely to bring disaster to Blue Star, so he didn't consider him for now. As for the first transformation, I would choose Abu, because I need the divine power he has. What I didn't expect was that the armor and weapons obtained after the transformation were the same as the original, and because he left the residence of the Order of the Lord God, the divine power was twice as small as there. The most important thing is that I only have about 10 minutes to transform, when I can only transform once a day. In the blink of an eye, I appeared and came to the central hospital. Looking at the skinny Grandma Jiang on the hospital bed, I felt very uncomfortable. Over the years, I haven't seen Grandma Jiang for a long time because of some of my own reasons. At this moment, with the divine power of the Order of the Lord of Antrica, it can definitely effectively intervene in Grandma's illness. However, this kind of birth, old age, illness, and death is an eternal law of nature, so even if it is stopped by divine power, the diseases caused by physical aging still have limits. The rest can only depend on Grandma's will to survive. I secretly made a vow in my heart that next time I will definitely come to visit her with Tarzan. As soon as the picture turned, he came to the elven elf kingdom, because Harry's was originally incarnated from the stumps of the world tree, so there were many elves who had a natural sense of closeness to him, especially the young high elf Cecia. Ever since he found out that Harry and I were friends, he has often come to talk to me, but at the moment I still have some trouble. Until now, I couldn't use any elven magic, but I obviously added all the points to the affinity. Granwood told me not to be too discouraged. If you want to use elven magic, you must first learn to summon elves, and before summoning them, you need to calm down and communicate with them. I can try to show the elves the power I get in nature. This immediately gave me a sudden enlightenment that I didn't try to communicate with the elves after summoning them. I followed Glenwood's guidance and slowly released the affinity of nature. At this point, I could clearly feel that I could hear some sounds from nature. At the same time, the system popped up a prompt window, and he congratulated me on my success in learning elf techniques through repeated training. And when learning elf magic for the first time, each elf can get an elf of their own. Then call this little guy what? Time flew to the opening ceremony of Sethia again. Thanks to her, I finally saw the true face of the world tree. Interestingly, when the high elves perform the eye-opening ceremony, everything in the world will grow again. Immediately, all the forces of nature in the vicinity will gather in one place with an overwhelming trend. After that, the world tree will give birth to extremely rare golden fruits. Only by eating this fruit can the high elves complete their eyes. At the same time, I was very excited because the natural forces generated in the process were absorbed into my body. This made me successfully gain a new understanding of natural affinity. Now I can absorb natural forces like other elves and become stronger. Not to mention that now I have received the sacred relics given by the world tree. Granwood said that this thing can be said to be extremely precious and can be processed into any decoration or weapon I want. And each elf can get a relic when they participate in the eye-opening ceremony for the first time. The holy relics he received during the eye-opening ceremony were processed into engagement rings by him. Later, with the help of Granwood, I also successfully entered the Royal Academy of the Elf Kingdom. The atmosphere here was completely different from what I had imagined, and I thought everyone would live in the trees and nature like the elves in the movie. But in fact, they are as curious as usual. Because I gave myself the identity of an elf from another continent, they were very interested in my experience, except for an elf named Sha Feilu. On the contrary, she felt that the classroom had become noisy after my arrival. Meanwhile, on the other side, the Elven King City and the Elf Queen have received news of the successful resurrection of the undead king. But neither she nor Gran Granwood had to worry too much about it, because now it is time for the young elves to take over this burden. After all, Cethia has completed the eye-opening ceremony, and there is also a guy from another continent, and I have also received special attention from the World Tree. So if I can be educated in the Elf Kingdom, I will definitely get great results. At the same time, Granwood also hopes that his daughter can also help me with my studies. And here Shah Phelan is indeed persuading me to study hard, although I don't know the details of this guy. But if the average grade of the class I harmed was lowered, she would never forgive me easily. This made me suddenly feel a little strange, and at this time I actually felt a little familiar with Saffron, and her facial features look very similar to Granwood's. So is it true that Saffron is really Granwood's daughter? But the personalities of this father and daughter are simply very different, although Shah Phelan hated me very much, but the notes she gave me were explained in detail, which allowed me to learn elf techniques faster. Now I can probably summon the lowest level of fire elf cards, and Pascal the lowest level wind elf, and the exclusive elves summoned last time have grown into low-level electric elves. Since I am a guest from afar, I will not cause any problems and try to adapt to the environment. That's what I was going to do, but it seems that I have a special fate with Shah Phelan. It was a homework assignment assigned by a tutor. A celebration will be held soon to celebrate the birth of the new high elf Cethia. We need to perform singing or dance at that time, and the instructor will borrow a stage in the capital for review. I thought that since I hadn't seen Cethia for a long time, let her see my handsome side. It's just that I didn't expect that this homework would be in the same group as Shafirn. In addition, there are two members named Curie and Dimmer. The homework requirements are essentially to improve the sympathy between the elves, so it is not necessary to use the traditional singing and dancing methods of the elven elf kingdom. So I stood up and said I had an idea. At this time, I happened to remember the songs I often sang in my hometown, and I was still very confident in this regard. Although before that, I had been living an extremely boring snail life, but I also often spend time singing. My words couldn't help but make Shah Phelan wonder, is this kind of guy really recognized by his father and the World Tree Lord? Thinking of this, Shah Phelan decided to give me a chance. If I messed up this matter, she would definitely not be with me. I agreed directly, but I also had a condition that Shah Phelan could popularize the culture of the Elf Kingdom with me after achieving good results, because it was difficult for me to fully understand this knowledge from books. Time passed quickly. 3 days after hard practice, the system prompted me to comprehend the skill of harmonious melody through repeated training, which can comprehensively improve my sense of pitch. At this point, I can feel that my tone has become more stable, which should be the feeling of the force of nature, stabilizing the vocal cords. The group members were also immersed in my singing. The elves of the sand flywheel reacted to these songs, and my elves have evolved to lower realms through these melodies. What shocked me even more was that there was an aura from the sound elf in front of me right now. Shah Phelan also looked slightly stunned. I didn't expect that I could sympathize with the sound elf. I looked at the very cute little guy in front of me with a satisfied face. In that case, your name is Decibel, and I remember in Shah Phelu's notes that the spirits of the phenomenal world can help with many tasks. The tone of the other two team members seemed extremely excited at this time. So let's use this song during the celebration. After all, this has been recognized by the sound spirit, and the sound spirit has always been attracted only by beautiful sounds. I nodded in agreement, so we used the time before the performance to prepare the practice plan. Then the day of the celebration arrived. We perform our duties according to the division of labor, and everyone is playing with their hearts. In order to achieve the best singing effect, I even brought traditional human instruments from Blue Star. This led to the fact that even Granwood was deeply immersed in the beautiful singing. Although it was the first time I had heard this type of song, my heart was beating wildly for such a wonderful sound, and Granwood was also surprised to find that Shah Phelan, who had always had a cold temperament, would show a look similar to excitement at this time. Along with that, their respective elves also danced gently to the rhythm of the song. In fact, it is thanks to Shah Phelan that the effect can be achieved at this moment, because as an elf, he naturally has a better sense of pitch than me. This gorgeous stage and costumes are all thanks to his help, and this guy has been trouble with me before, and now it seems that he is the one who enjoys it the most. During this time, I also discovered an interesting thing. That is, my characteristics and harmonic rhythms can also work on other people. After the performance, Shah Phelan turned to me and bowed deeply. He was very sorry for what had been done to me. This scene deeply moved Granwood, and it is a song that can make the listener's heart meet. So Hellies, you will definitely be able to make a big impact in the Elven Kingdom. At the same time, the saintess of the great temple on the other side, Lyasta, was asking Abu if he had heard of the legend of the Holy Sword. It is the strongest weapon used by the protagonist hero in the magical novel. I am not very clear about this. Lyasta then slowly expressed her thoughts, and now that this matter has been unanimously approved, please challenge the Holy Sword trial of the main god order, because now I am recognized as a new hero who can compete with the immortal king, and this trial site is located in the great temple of Picard in the west of the continent. Its presence predecessor was the Sarbu Empire, which was destroyed 300 years ago by the second generation of the undead kings. After that, 4 countries claiming to be descendants of the empire were born, and the United Kingdom was successfully established by these 4 countries. The Great Temple of Picard is located in the southernmost kingdom of Leicester. Interestingly, it happened to be the location where the Braves slaughtered the second generation of the undead king, and the former hero at that time did not destroy the heart of the undead king in one fell swoop, and then caused the abyss to run rampant, and the land was polluted by dark magic. In the end, it was the hero who inserted the holy sword into the land to evolve, and only the heir recognized by the previous hero could find the holy sword. I was a little confused, but if I pulled out the seal of the abyss of the holy sword, wouldn't it be broken? Lyasta slowly explained, this is actually the reason why they have never mentioned the holy sword trial, but under the baptism of time, now is the time to inherit the hero's weapon. As soon as the picture turned, I appeared and came to the Great Temple of Picard. This looks no worse than the Great Temple of Rosenia. At this moment a voice slowly said, am I an Abu Knight from afar? I turned around and recognized the other person's identity. Before leaving, the Saintess had told me that Bishop Donovan, who was in charge of the Holy Sword trial, was a very tall guy. Because he was also born as a paladin, he was very strong from figure to strength. Du Nuofen looked a little sad at this time. If he knew that he would not be able to see the saint after the order was issued, then he would not rush to become this bishop. So I should be able to understand his grandfather's mood. If there are any ill-intentioned guys who intend to get close to the saint, please cut them off without hesitation. Then he coughed lightly and got down to business. The Holy Sword trial would only start once a year. During this time, countless paladins came to challenge, but in the end they all ended in failure. But I do make him feel inexplicably confident, because he can feel in me the divine power of great devotion to the Lord God. So I really deserve to be the next brave man recognized by the Lord God. Du Nuofen corrected his expression again. In fact, everyone's trial content is different. Some are for a few hours, but some are for a few weeks. After that, he took me to the underground entrance of the Great Temple, and as long as I stepped through this door, there was no chance of regret, so I could leave now if I was still hesitating. This made me laugh, since the Order recognized me as the chosen one. Then I would definitely find the Holy Sword. The first assessment of the Holy Sword trial is to arrive at the designated location within the specified time, and the door that came in at the beginning of the trial disappeared in an instant. And at this time, there is a way forward before and after me, so I probably want to make the right choice in an emergency. But I don't have to worry about this. The blessing of the jump allows me to have trial and error costs. After a while, I faintly felt something was wrong, and it stands to reason that I should have jumped several cities. But now there is no end in sight, and the question of the trial is also very vague, only to say that it is to reach the designated location, but the specific location is not clearly stated. I remember that the Saintess once said that the content of the trial of the Holy Sword varies from person to person, but one thing is the same. The main god will silently watch the knights during the trial. Then this should be a trial from the main god, not a simple assessment of arriving at the designated place within the specified time. This is probably to test what limits my body can reach. It's just that the jumping efficiency I'm using now is still too low. At present, the only way to consume physical strength and reach the limit is probably rabbit jumping. It was only after 40 days that I got it, and I successfully passed the first trial assessment. I didn't expect that the end of the road would be a door. Although I found out halfway through that there is a time difference between here and the outside world. The ratio is about 10:1, but this is a very painful test for the paladins who do not understand the passage of time. If there was no support from the center of thought during this period, I would have almost wavered in my determination to pass the trial. This was followed by the second trial. The moment I started the trial, I felt my body recovered, and I was much stronger than before. This may be the reason for the time difference, and the income from training here is equivalent to 10 times that of outside. At this time somewhere, the Oath Against Heaven was quietly preparing a plan. Now that the undead king has been successfully resurrected, it's time to open the abyss seal and let the land recover in darkness. Here I have successfully opened the second trial assessment of the Holy Knight. What surprised me was that the second place of trial turned out to be an extremely large chapel. Then he probably wants me to pray to the Lord God here. Because this trial has appeared in the trial questions of the predecessors, it is a test of the future hero's faith in the gods and the divine power. And my divine power at this time has reached the level between bishop and archbishop, so there should be no problem passing this trial. As long as I use divine power to perfectly fill the holy mark of the cross in front of me, I can successfully pass the trial. Coupled with the blessing of the characteristic skill thought center, it can convert the spiritual power collection of all my clones into the power of faith. Randomly only listen to a ding, and the system congratulates me on successfully obtaining a special skill increment. I could immediately feel the changes in my body, and the maximum value that could accommodate divine power was obviously increased. Roughly speaking, now my divine power power has almost reached the level of an archbishop. The next thing to deal with is the third stage of trial assessment. In the blink of an eye, I was transported to an unfamiliar map, and the scene around me suddenly made me feel a bad premonition. Because the atmosphere here is familiar to me, and I can't be more familiar with it. I saw a figure slowly emerging in front of me at this time. His identity is none other than Unkritch, a subordinate of the former undead king. It is not difficult to find that Unkritch and Hans before the awakening are carved out of the same mold, and his ability is not much different from Hans's, and he can also summon an entire army of undead. This made me secretly say in my heart, it's not easy to deal with, and Unkritch is already uncomfortable, and now let me deal with the undead legion at the same time. But I can probably guess that this is the reaction that the questioner wants to see from me, and I'm afraid it will disappoint you. After reaching the same level of divine power as the archbishop, dealing with these undead creatures was simply an extremely easy thing. Seeing this, Unkritch wondered what my guy was muttering something there. Could it be that he didn't realize that he was about to die here? And then he waved his hand to signal the undead legion behind him to attack immediately. At this moment, facing the undead puppets swarming all over my body, I didn't need to do anything at all. I just stood quietly in place, and the archbishop-level divine power alone was enough to make these guys dare not step forward for half a step. This made me joke that it was really a pity that the undead you were proud of would be afraid of me. And this scene in front of him had long frightened Unkritch to the ground, and what frightened him was not only this divine power that was too powerful to ignore. It's more about my accurate prediction of these magic trajectories. I said that this is not a big deal. It's just that I have a pretty good dark mage master. After all, that guy is the strongest first echelon lecturer in the undead world. Although even if the attributes are comparable, it is difficult for me alone to resist these damages. But because of Hans's talent, he was able to see through the weaknesses of all black magic in the world. So dealing with these guys was as simple as sleeping for me. Soon I got a prompt from the system congratulating me on successfully passing all the levels and moving to where the holy sword was. I thought that it is a common routine in the game to get rewards for spawning monsters, and I can probably get all the rewards by entering the door in front of me. After pushing open the door, he immediately saw an extremely bright church. I muttered in a puzzled voice, could it be that the part inserted into this sword was the whole abyss that the undead king made after his death? At this time, the system prompted me to try to pull out the holy sword to obtain the holy sword inheritance. I raised my hand and slowly stretched forward as instructed, and at that moment, I could feel a lot of things pouring into my body. I feel that it should come from the battle imprints of the previous generation of heroes, which include the move of wielding the holy sword and the trick of controlling power. It can be said that it contains all the combat knowledge of the brave. In addition, in the process of drawing the sword, it will also be disturbed by some of their emotional imprints. At this moment, if it were replaced by another paladin, it was likely that he would fall into a coma immediately. But I am not the same, as I have the blessing of the center of thought, and I can reconcile these emotions very well. The system prompted me to successfully gain a new understanding and obtain the Holy Knight's special skill, the Holy Sword Blessing. At this time, I suddenly noticed that there was an unexpected stigmata on my palm that I had never seen before, and its function is the same as that of subspace. As long as my heart is moved, I can take out the Holy Sword directly from it. In addition, the battle marks of the heroes of the past have all become my rewards. With the fighting rules of these Holy Sword users throughout the ages, I guess at this time I can still be at a disadvantage even against Hans. After all, the power gained from comprehension can make my movements more flexible, and in any case, it can be regarded as helping the saint realize her wish. The Holy Sword, which has been sealed for many years, is finally about to usher in its highlight moment. At the same time, on the other side of the underground valley, the One-Day Oath organization was conducting an incomparably great evil experiment. That is to try to reopen the door of the abyss, and this experiment may be able to reawaken the undead kings of the past generations. After a while, Hans suddenly felt a violent tremor in his heart, and a chill appeared in his heart. Following the traces of this induction, I instantly understood in my heart that this must be a trick played behind the scenes by the guys who swore an oath against the sky. The aura of the first immortal king actually reappeared on the human continent again, and at this moment he was far stronger than he was back then, because he had long been completely integrated with the evil thoughts of the immortal kings of the past dynasties during the long years of the abyss. So now his evil thoughts are trying to be compatible with the heart in my body. But what he never expected was that this guy of mine broke the shackles of the past and became the first undead king with self-awareness. The scene in front of him was really going to make the jealousy in his heart boil madly, and this also made me suddenly realize one thing. The impure substance I felt in my heart at the moment might be the evil thoughts of these guys. So I suddenly opened my mouth to these evil thoughts and said, "The undead who were eliminated in the past dare to be disrespectful to me. As the new king of the undead, I have no interest in listening to the orders of a loser, so it is better to get rid of the resentment in my heart and and completely liberate myself from this emotion. The immortal kings of the past generations actually nodded in agreement and said that if I could really let them die forever, then I would get an incomparably generous reward, something they should have had but never been able to. Hearing this, I directly used a skill called a persona. His ability is to control specific feelings at will. So as one of many feelings, these evil thoughts will also be discharged outside the heart. And when their aura completely disappeared, I finally understood what that reward was. It turned out to be the legacy of the undead king hidden all over the world. The first immortal king once divided the entire continent in two, while the second immortal king destroyed an empire. No matter how powerful he was, he would never be able to accomplish such a great feat alone. So under the command of the two undead kings, there is naturally an army of the undead to fight ahead. Although most of them had been solved by the order of the main gods before, some immortal secret methods were used to successfully retain some of their power, the most extensive of which was to implement self-sealing on the border of the abyss. And the reward that the immortal kings of the past generations said turned out to be the initiative to loosen the seal here. Then an unstable door slowly appeared in front of me. Seeing this, I immediately activated the skill Abyss Eye. It turned out that this door was actually the black magic of the immortal king's exact origin, so maybe I could try to manipulate it to open it. The next moment, I felt an abyssal force that was so strong that it clung to my heart and bones. I didn't expect that absorbing this door would make my strength stronger. And the most important thing is that the powerful Gyulong Trasio under the first undead king was also successfully resurrected at this time. But the legacy of the immortal king is far more than that. Anyway, as far as I know, there are at least thousands of combat forces like this. At this time, I was planning to lead the Gyulong Trasio out of the underground valley. Then I suddenly asked Tracio if he felt that power, a power that made the dark magicians smell it. I thought that if I attacked the main god order directly at this time, it would definitely not be a good time after all. I had not fully understood the abyss power now. Generally speaking, if you buy a car in reality, you will call your friends to test the car, so it will definitely be interesting to let Gyulong Trasio appear. And it's also an opportunity to earn a lot of achievement points. Thinking of this, I rode the ancient dragon and quickly galloped to the top of the location of the main god order. My eyes showed a bit of indifference at this time. You damn bugs are really boring. Could it be that I want to start a war against the holy cult again? Archbishop Latius immediately cursed when he heard this. As the sole leader of black magic, I don't know what kind of tragedy opening the abyss will bring to the continent. For this ceremony, tens of thousands of people on the continent were sacrificed. So of course all this is directed by me, the leader. Hearing this, I was simply miserable after all. The guys who swore an oath against heaven would not obey my orders. As for this question, I never thought to deny it. After thinking about it, I agreed softly indeed. Who else on this continent could do such a thing except me? But don't think that the ants of the order can attack me in this way. I will give you a verbal warning for today's matter. If there is another time, I will not hesitate to target your new power. I will make the Abu Knight completely reduced to my undead puppet. Hearing this, the members of the order immediately no longer hesitated and immediately lined up in place according to the formation. How dare I speak such a disrespectful lie against a brave man whom the Lord God himself confesses? Seeing this, I immediately signaled the ancient dragon Latizio to immediately activate all his strength. After the aura of this skill hedging gradually dissipated, the people of the main god order were shocked to find that the king of the undead had disappeared without a trace in an instant. What made them even more hateful was that my extremely arrogant tone dared to openly threaten the most favored Abu Knight in the order. After I went away, I couldn't help but exaggerate that Latecio's acting talent was simply innate. How did he create such a terrifying but non-lethal skill atmosphere? As time went on, many of the legacies left by the undead king began to show signs of recovery, and because I had successfully fused the abyss power before, so now they are much stronger than before, which is reflected in the fact that they have begun to have something called wisdom. The subsequent picture came to the office of the new leader of the vampires. His subordinate Cranrod is reporting to me on the intelligence information he has just gathered. The current situation on the continent of Atrika is very urgent because there are large undead armies all over the continent, but fortunately, the kingdom of Talia, where Blockslack is located, has not suffered much damage. I thought to myself that this was a natural promise. After all, the undead here had already been solved by Hans himself. It's just that even the vampires have not received any written reports related to madness here, even if the undead don't know what madness is. Hearing this, Cranrod immediately said his guess, although he himself did not dare to be 100% sure. But I don't know if it was affected by madness. During this time, everyone would often quarrel because of some trivial matters, because not only humans, but also the actions of monsters began to become unusual. This answer made me have to pay attention to it. It turns out that madness has an inevitable impact on all living things on the continent. After thinking about it, I issued a new order to Cranrod, and from today onwards, the intelligence services of Blockslark must put the collection of madness in the first place. As for my other clones, Hans is busy putting the undead army in order, and Ah Kun can't leave the Blockslark territory now. After thinking about it, I could only entrust Abu, who was in the main god order. Here, Abu was presenting the holy sword of the jungle incident in front of Saint Laista's eyes. Then take advantage of this reason to ask the saintess about her madness. It turned out that there was something called madness in the reopening of the abyss this time, although it was still in an extremely unstable state. But because it did not know its true face, it would make people feel more dangerous. Hearing this, I immediately put forward my demands. In that case, let me go to the abyss to investigate, so that I can get new opportunities to exercise. And since I received the blessing of the holy sword, I have developed the determination to fulfill my obligations. At this point, the saintess could only nod in agreement. So please ask the Abu Knight to investigate the true face of the madness. It's just that since I completed the feat of drawing the holy sword, I still need to perform a ritual before that. After a while, my figure appeared and came to the great temple of the order. All warriors who draw their holy swords must get a necklace worn by the saintess herself, because this means that he will be appointed as a senior paladin of the order of the Lord God. That is, the moment I just put on the necklace immediately burst out with a dazzling light. At this moment, even the blessing with the center of thought could not stop the erosion of this divine power. I can feel this force slowly changing the structure of the body, and after receiving the blessing of another special skill, the Night of Light, I was shocked to find that my originally black hair turned into snow white at some point. Just when I was full of doubts, the saint suddenly bowed to me. "Dear son, Saint Laista of the Order of the Lord of God is greeting you." Looking at my extremely puzzled expression, Laista explained, "Because I received a blessing that was only legendary. This is enough to prove that I am the chosen son of the Lord God, and as a reward, I will receive a pair of armor handmade by the top craftsmen of the Order of the Lord. Every part of this armor is forged from extremely expensive mithril and arcane steel, and it also applies advanced holy laws and divine barriers. And since then, my position in the Order has also changed, which means that I am now in an equal relationship with the saint." Later, when I handed over some work to the saint, I informed that a continental summit would be held soon. The content is to discuss all the undead that have appeared on the continent, including the undead king. The picture came to my first doppelganger, the immortal King Hans. At this moment, I finally found the legendary undead golem Garam. This strongest warrior under the immortal king of all time bears the peerless reputation of the Dark Knight King, and is not only powerful enough to surpass the level of the holy sword, he also has the excellent commanding ability to command thousands of troops, coupled with his mastery of the necromancy of creating undead creatures, and can be called one of the top powerhouses capable of commanding the undead legion. But this is not enough. The summit of the mainland countries is about to be held, and my combat power is still scattered in various places and cannot be concentrated. Since there was no other choice, I could only take the risk and use the skill of Dark Demon Assembly. This ability allows me to reunite with all the undead on the continent directly to follow my commands. Even during the casting process, my hiding place will be directly exposed in 9 out of 10. But the Order of the Lord God wants to crack this dark skill, will not be able to do it in a while. In this way, after all the undead have assembled, I can quickly interrupt the casting, and there will be no problems. From now on, I want to let the entire undead legion see a new future that is completely different from the past. At the same time, on the other side, Hubert Chamber of Commerce Hain was looking at the news report in his hand with a shocked expression. In the northern mountains region, there was an emergency of monsters attacking the merchant group. This made me mutter, could it be that this was affected by madness? You must know that in the past, under Harry's jurisdiction, that generation of monsters had become extremely obedient, and the ultimate impact of this incident was to prevent potential chaos in the future, and all forces would purchase a large amount of food and sufficient war materials in advance. So combined with the current situation, now is definitely not the best time to continue doing business, and this has been the case throughout the ages. Small businessmen are only chasing the small profits. On the other hand, the real giant businessmen will put aside the shackles of mundane profits and chase their own desires. So if I want to take this opportunity to quickly expand my business group, then the best way is to support the people with a large amount of daily necessities at such a time. But my primary support target is which place is safer. Then I suddenly remembered another news report in the newspaper that the steel-walled city seemed to be recruiting mercenaries on a large scale at the moment. Here Harry is immersed in the joy of food with his friends. Harry's answer to the frontline signs in the walled city was that he had to go to war, which was an obligation that he had to fulfill as a mercenary. But when I went to the registration office, I was told that I could not participate in this frontline call because someone has specified the commission to me alone before, and this mysterious client is none other than the Robin Knight of the Egonian territory. When we first met, Robin Knight was full of praise for my appearance, admitting that my physique was born to be destined to be a mercenary. This made me suddenly think that Robin was really good at talking. shocking, but I didn't know what difficulties he had in finding me, a little mercenary. When Robin heard this, he took advantage of the situation to express his demands, pointing out that there was only one reason for me to come alone, and that the Yanya territory was in great need of talents who could conquer the northern mountains. But the main task of this trip is not to deal with the monsters in that area. Instead, it is to help him successfully rescue a blacksmith named Nick Hunick. Then I returned to my main world, and at this moment, I was fulfilling my promise to follow Jiang Taishan to visit my grandma. Thanks to the healing effect of the divine power last time, Grandma Jiang's current physical condition has improved a lot. Jiang Taishan also felt very unbelievable. After all, even the doctor was extremely surprised, and if this continued, he believed that he would be able to recover and be discharged from the hospital soon. It didn't take long for the doctor to figure out the key to the problem, and after several days of diagnostic observation, he felt more and more that this symptom was like the effect of being continuously infused with divine power by a high-ranking priest for several days. But this is simply impossible. How can ordinary people like us at the bottom get to know big people at that level? Hearing this, I could only say it vaguely, maybe because my grandmother had a strong personality and defeated the disease with her own perseverance. Time came to the next day, and I followed Yanya's team on the road to the northern mountains. I don't know if it's because this is a task that the Lord personally entrusts. Everyone in the team seems particularly active at this time. Not only that, but I also feel more and more that Nick Hunick must be a pretty good blacksmith. After all, in addition to the people of the Yanya territory, the steel-walled city has specially sent several famous mercenaries to act as leaders for us. Along the way, we frequently encountered attacks of varying intensity. At first, with these powerful mercenaries on the left and right, I didn't have to make a move at all. As the number of monsters increased, I had no room to sit idly by. If you just rely on your fists, I'm afraid it will be difficult to defeat these monsters directly. If I could activate the feral skill, I would be able to easily solve the trouble in front of me. But if I did, I would be likely to be mistaken for a monster disguised as a humanoid. So I had no choice but to fight with just a pair of fists. But this was enough to shock those powerful mercenaries. Even if I can't defeat these monsters in a few moves, the fact that I can repel them with my fists alone is jaw-dropping enough. Then I took advantage of their inattention and secretly stuffed a few magic stones into my mouth. Thinking about this way, I was forced to follow them to enjoy cooked meat together, and I almost starved myself to death. And just as I swallowed the magic stone, an unprecedented powerful force suddenly erupted in my body. At the same time, the voice of bewitching me to kill my companions kept echoing in my mind, and thanks to the suppression of the thought center, I barely stabilized this violent impulse. But then my body began to shake uncontrollably, and the breath that permeated me at this moment brought me an extremely familiar feeling. When he looked up, he found that the entire forest at this time was completely filled with madness. At this time, Hans was overlooking his undead empire. In addition to Garam, who is known as the Dark Knight, another shrewd and capable female subordinate has come to join him at this moment. It is Olivia, who has the title of King of Banshees, and as the highest-ranking cadre of the undead army, Olivia and her ghost army are unimaginably powerful. Cologne Tracio, Dark Knight Garam, and Olivia, the King of Banshees, the three of them are a legendary combination that can only be recorded in history books. After all, during the reign of the previous undead kings, their peak years have always been staggered from each other, and there has never been a moment in the same frame. So at this moment, I have undoubtedly completed a great feat unique to the field of dark magic. And the first task I assigned to Olivia was to find out all the information about the oath against heaven, and then I want those guys to obey me, the new undead king. After a while, Ah Kun received intelligence information from Hans. Now the tribe Kaselak, where Ah Kun is located, can be said to be the most powerful intelligence organization on the entire continent, and the situation of the country on the surface is mainly handled by the tribe Kaselak, and the private information behind the scenes was obtained from Olivia. As for the specific information about madness, although there are various punishment identities to advance the investigation these days, the rest can only be supplemented by Harry. Here another question arose in Harry's mind, and the state of madness seemed to be becoming more and more unstable. Those monsters just inhaled the air gently, and they were immediately infected by madness. And at the moment, except for me, my companions couldn't feel the existence of madness at all, which made me guess that the influence of madness on ordinary humans was not high. And because I myself have the dragon blood flowing in my body, I will be disturbed by madness to a certain extent. And at the moment, I can only temporarily rely on the skill of physical mutation to fight against the deformation of my body. As for the erosion of the spiritual level, it still continues to rely on the power of the center of thought to resist. It didn't take long for us to find the dwarven blacksmith Nick Hunick deep in the mountains to the north. It was also at this time that a large number of giant monsters rushed towards this side like crazy. Seeing this situation, Robin Knight immediately signaled everyone to quickly escort blacksmith Nick down the mountain, according to the original original plan. And the best executor of this plan is none other than me, which is why Robin Knight specified that I must go with him, because my big physique can complete the evacuation work very well. But at this moment, the plan had changed, and Robin Knight alone could not fight against these fierce giant monsters. At this point, I couldn't hesitate any longer, and then took all the magic stones I had collected along the way. Immediately afterwards, a mad aura that was far more terrifying than before swept through my body, and if the power obtained from the magic stone was then manipulated and absorbed by skills, it would be absorbed. Then theoretically, I can use this power indefinitely, so maybe I can try to absorb all the madness around me. In an instant, I received a system prompt that the skill Wild was evolved and grew into a special skill, the Frenzied Beast. When I activate this skill, it not only strengthens my muscles, it can also give me a stronger and larger physique, and in this state, it is like a beast that is extremely powerful but can still keep human sobriety and reason. Next, let's start killing unscrupulously. Because of the powerful power of this mad beast, I easily ended this battle with just 3 strokes and 5 divisions. This made several mercenaries dumbfounded. Harry is indeed the strongest mercenary in Tarak. The trick just now was so fast that they couldn't even see my movements clearly. Even the blacksmith Nick Hunick couldn't help but sigh that I possessed the bravery unique to their dwarven race. But it is almost impossible to completely wipe out the entire northern mountain range with this. Then I came up with a compromise. These mad monsters will most likely slow down our evacuation from this place, so we can let Nick Hunick use his skills to dig underground caverns for us to buy time. When all this was done, I breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, the blacksmith's talent can also come in handy in the current situation. Then I opened the system pop-up window to check its detection panel. It is shown above that there is an item in this underground cave that is not inferior to the stump of the world tree. Its iron pickaxe, named Alina, is a magical item created by blacksmith Nick Hunick using the soul of a dwarven craftsman. At this time, Robin actually said thoughtfully, "It is not a good idea to hide here all the time. After all, our food will always run out one day." When I heard this, I immediately suggested that I had a very good idea. The biggest problem now is how to get rid of those monsters, so let me lure them to another place first. Robin was still a little hesitant after hearing this. After all, doing so would likely cost me my life, and I deliberately made a solemn look, randomly pointed to the iron pickaxe in Nick Hunick's hand, and said, "Then why don't you let me hold that thing? As long as I have that, I can ensure my own safety." With the iron pickaxe, I quickly found the 2-headed giant at the head. I didn't expect the current situation to have happened to this point, and even a high-level species like a 2-headed ogre was swallowed up by madness. But looking at him like this, it is estimated that he can give me a lot of magic stones. Thinking of this, I quietly retreated towards the depths of the dense forest. The footsteps deliberately dragged out a messy sound, which led the 2-headed giant to follow into the inaccessible valley. After reaching the valley, a wild cold light suddenly burst out in my eyes. The physical mutation skill suddenly activated, and then the chi and blood all over his body rolled and surged like a raging wave. Then I went up to the wind with my bare hands. The left hand accurately separates the sweep of the left side of his head. The right hand clenched his fist and slammed into the face door on the right side of his head with the blessing of wild power. Although your silly big brother has become more and more unscrupulous because of his arrogant existence, but you have to know that madness can also make me stronger for me. As he spoke, my big hand easily twisted one of his heads with a little effort. The bald giant was so painful that he almost couldn't even speak, and he said with a cold face, "I can only be stunned for a while at most, because his subordinates will come to support him soon." But as soon as the words fell, his body slammed. At this moment, as far as the eye could see, the ground was already covered with the corpses of monsters. Akun chuckled and slowly put away the vampire magic. "Thanks to you, Guy, I had a reason to leave Blockslark." After saying that, Akun raised his hand and quickly solved the 2-headed giant. But I didn't call Akun over just for support. There is also the iron pickaxe of Nick Hunick and leaving. As for Harry, he devoured the 2-headed giant's body before the madness disappeared. But at this moment, an aura similar to Gyulong Lassio suddenly appeared in the surrounding environment. And after Harry used his telekinetic eye, he discovered that it was the most powerful monster in the northern mountains, the red dragon Heratos. It's just that now he seems to have been completely swallowed up by madness. The red dragon Heratos immediately locked his eyes on us, and a sneer rumbled from his throat. It turned out to be a mongrel human with a vampire, but it was barely acceptable. Seeing this, Akun immediately urged the vampire magic to blast forward. What is shocking is that Heratos is not only amazing in terms of defense, but also in terms of healing ability. On the other hand, at this moment, Heratos looked contemptuous and really humble ants, thinking that this would hurt him. The red dragon was originally the top existence in the entire dragon race, and he, Heratos, had only been defeated once in his life. That man was the immortal king who had sentenced him to death, and later, as the man's breath disappeared from this world forever, the curse that was trapped in him was completely broken, and it was because of this that he was able to wake up from his slumber not long ago. After saying this, Haratos thought that we would definitely tremble with fear. After all, the only guy in this world who could suppress himself had disappeared from this world forever. But what we saw in the next second was an undisguised bright smile on our faces, and we said that we couldn't beat it, so we called another person to help. As he spoke, a powerful figure exuding majestic coercion slowly appeared in front of Haratos. It turns out to be a dragon clan polluted by madness. I think it should be a very good experimental material. The person who spoke was my first doppelganger, Hans, the tenacious new king of the immortal. Hans's eyes showed a bit of murderous intent at this time. I had seen you in the memory of the previous undead king. If I wake up from a long hibernation like fake death, then I will also return from death, so I hope you don't be too surprised by my appearance. And since I first came here, I have placed an immortality barrier. You will lose all your mobility here, including the fact that you will no longer be able to wave the wings that your dragons are proud of. This battle was not on the same order of magnitude from the beginning. Therefore, Hans' subordinate Tracio alone is enough to deal with this Haratos. After all, Tracio was originally the previous undead king, an undead creature created according to the model of Haratos. At present, coupled with the blessing of the dark magic power, Haratos, as the main body, was not his opponent at all. Moments later, Haratos was tied up with death chains. This made Akon and Harry's greedy eyes shine, and the long-awaited dragon blood could finally be tasted at this moment due to the shackles of death chains. In addition, the blood sword forged by Akon, condensing the true blood of his whole body, was used to contain Haratos' attention. Only then did Harry seize the opportunity to get into Haratos' body. At this moment, Harry was like a parasite to Haratos, or the kind of difficult guy who could not be eradicated even with anthelmintic drugs. And in the process of devouring, Harry's skills also evolved. Skill regeneration upgrades become super regeneration. Therefore, even if the process of devouring the flesh and blood of the dragons is extremely physically exhausting, but Harry can also recover quickly with his super regenerative properties. After a while, as the skill monster evolves, it becomes a special skill gluttony. Above Harry's arms, the scales of the dragon clan suddenly appeared. This made Harry immediately understand that since the dragon race is an existence that is above all races, it is possible to absorb the characteristics of the guy Haratos just by devouring flesh and blood. At this moment, Haratos was no different from her incompetent husband, and she could only watch Harry devour her flesh and blood. As the madness in his body was gradually absorbed, Akon also began to taste the dragon blood on Haratos' body. With a ding, the system immediately popped up a prompt window, and due to the integration of dragon blood, the special skill blood of the blood clan has grown significantly. This completely verified Akon's previous idea, and sure enough, the condition for evolving into holy blood was to absorb the blood of creatures that were higher than himself. After a while, Hans looked at the three treasures in front of him with a satisfied face: dragon blood, dragon bones, and dragon horns. With so many precious materials needed for rare techniques in one go, this dragon corpse is like a mobile treasure trove. Dragon blood is naturally handed over to Akon for safekeeping. After all, this thing is a God-given treasure that is hard to find for the blood clan. However, to say that the biggest beneficiary of this harvest has to be Harry. The madness in Haratos' body was almost sucked clean by him alone. More importantly, he finally swallowed the most core treasured dragon heart among dragons and lions. This allowed him to completely evolve into a mixed-race dragonman. It also awakens a new special skill, the heart of the mad dragon. At this moment, Harry can not only control the madness in his body autonomously, but even absorb the madness around him at any time, and will get better results when combined with Longan. But in addition, there is a special thing worth noting, because after the current increase in body density, Harry may not be able to bear the heavy weight that comes with it. If this is left unchecked, it is likely to cause unforeseen trouble, and I had to get used to this new body before I could go to meet them. As for Hans's side, he got a new subordinate, the red dragon Haratos in an undead state. The picture returns to my master world, relying on the massive achievement points earned in the other world. My main body is living an extremely nourishing and comfortable life at this moment. The entertainment room, the gym, and even the comic house. I never thought that I could decorate the house according to my own ideas. Besides, I am very different from the disabled person who had limited mobility at that time, and I can choose to go out to socialize at any time if I want. On top of that, I also placed defensive barriers near the house, according to each doppelganger's ability. It can be said that there is no safer house in this world than me. After finishing my work, I opened the system pop-up window again. Without thinking too much, I directly chose to consume 1 million achievement points to strengthen my clone skills. With a ding, the system prompts that due to the growth of exclusive skills, the number of clones I hold has also increased accordingly. In addition, a special skill called the Clone Cloud Disc was also obtained. As the name suggests, this is a small subspace item that can be shared between each of my clones from now on, and he is a godsend to my 5th clone Kane. Before my excitement passed, I was about to usher in the 7th clone Longtupu. Although this is a bit sorry for Nick Hunick. I must get the dwarven token to customize this clone. After all, at this moment, I really need a craftsman who can create equipment for all clones. But the next moment, I felt very regretful. The function of personalization is completely ineffective on the dwarves. No matter how I adjust the values, Lump's height is always a head shorter than my main body. After thinking about it for a while, I stopped dwelling on this question too much. After all I need is Lumpuk's ability. As prompted by the clone panel, my 7th clone Rumpuk is affected by the craftsmanship, which increases the probability of additional modifications when crafting items. However, Lump and Harris have a common problem. That is, they do not have any initial basic knowledge. And now the northern mountains have probably already become a pot of porridge, so there should be no way to send Lump to learn knowledge. In that case, this time I'll leave it to Akun to be responsible. In any case, today's Akun is definitely a well-deserved leader among the Blood Clan. At the same time, the perspective turns to Han's undead empire, and Hans finally wants to gather the last piece of the puzzle of his members. Dwell McCain was a pretty good staff officer in the legacy of his predecessor, the Undead King. According to the intelligence collected so far, important strongholds, suspected of being an anti-Heaven Oath organization, have been found across the west of the continent to part of the Central Empire. In this regard, I am ready to give Olivia the right to be second only to me in the Empire. If necessary, he can take Garam and dwell with him at any time. The picture comes to the Oslian Empire, in the middle of the continent. A senior cadre member of the Oath Against Heaven suddenly sensed Olivia's scent. Her previous identity was Nightmare Siana, a former member of the Undead Army. For some reason, she was reluctant to continue serving in the Undead Army. As for the organization's current main investigation target, it is the new leader of the Brock's Slack family, and now they have found out that the other party is a true blood-level vampire. However, Siana did feel a little suspicious about this. Even a true blood-level vampire would not be able to fully control the entire vampire family, and at the same time, there were these 3 or so vampires under his command who obeyed him, and there was a high probability that he would have evolved into the holy blood level. On the other hand, Akun has arranged for Lee Minju to be fully prepared for Lank's study. After the cooldown of the teleportation array ends, you can send Lump to Kane's workshop to learn more professional craftsman knowledge. In addition, the traces of Fan Tianhui are now finally eyebrows. At present, Fan Tianhui is secretly communicating with other forces, but until now I haven't investigated what their next plan is. But I don't need to worry too much about it, because time is the clones on my side. These 10 months to improve strength. On the Earth side, more than a month has passed at most. It was at this time that an uninvited guest was welcomed at the gate of Blockslark's Manor. But as soon as she appeared here, she was greeted by Cranrod, because the person who came was the only existing holy blood vampire in the family, Lord Jasmine, and he was also the ancestor vampire of the Brock's Slack family. After coming to the waiting room, Jasmine wondered that the current Brock's Slack gave her a very different feeling. The guy who received her at the door just now, although there was no change in essence, but in detail, it seemed that there were still many things that were difficult for her to understand. She even can't help but think that she is just a guest. Saying that, Jasmine no longer hid. She bluntly asked Cranrod where the guy who turned them into something like that hid. This left Cranrod speechless for a while, not knowing how to answer this question. Master Jasmine knew everything from the beginning, but every word was testing himself. However, he didn't know that the reason why Jasmine came to me was actually very pure. Since a long time ago, Jasmine has been obsessed with researching how to use evolutionary bloodlines and inherit blood with high-quality genes. Once this is successful, maybe in the near future vampires will be able to walk in the sun with dignity. But as soon as she woke up, she found that among her many descendants, someone had really achieved this feat. The picture returns to the northern mountains. Regarding Nick Hunick's inquiry about Alina's whereabouts on Iron Island, I have already prepared a seamless set of rhetoric. After all, I was thinking of asking him to teach Lump some knowledge about forging. I told Nick Hunick that he didn't intentionally lose his Alina iron pickaxe, and there was a tear-jerking secret behind it. The battle was smooth at first, but as time went by, the enemy's combat power became more and more ferocious. Not only that, their number far exceeded my expectations, and the 3 layers of the outer layer densely surrounded me. Even though I gritted my teeth and tried my best to kill the enemy, my physical strength continued to be overdrawn, and my limbs gradually became heavy. Just as my strength slowed down a little, a sharp murderous intent struck from behind. Fortunately, Alina's iron pickaxe, who had been carrying her back, abruptly blocked this fatal sneak attack for me. But he couldn't withstand the huge force because of this, and it was completely broken in half with a click. And at the moment when the iron pickaxe shattered, the anger and unwillingness in my heart completely exploded. The hidden power in the whole body gushed out unreservedly. With this perseverance, I finally fought bloody battles and killed all my enemies. It was the urgency of the situation at that time, and the smoke was everywhere, and I didn't have time to pick up the broken iron pickaxe, so I could only watch it be completely submerged by the smoke and dust in the sky. As soon as these words came out, Nick Hunick could no longer hold back his inner emotions, and he was moved to tears on the spot. A mercenary member then expressed his opinion. The reason why I was able to burst out with powerful power in a short period of time should be the true blood of the dragon clan in my body, which also means that there were dragon people among my ancestors, and it is speculated that the aftermath of the war about 300 years ago interrupted this bloodline inheritance. This made me give him a thumbs up so that I could explain why dragon scales appeared on my arm. Then when we first returned to the Iron City, we encountered an extremely powerful opponent. The mutant minotaur is so powerful that he can easily fly away the main god order and magicians, so much so that even the mercenary group summoned from the mainland could not get close to him. But when I first appeared there, I instantly knocked it down with one move. After all, the dragon blood gene in my body has completely evolved, and I am born with absolute coercion that can suppress all races. After devouring the Minotaurus magic stone, I gained a strong lower body with the help of his genetic factors. Then I followed Robin Knight to meet the Lord and submit the commission. As I was about to enter, Robin reminded me that I would pay more attention to etiquette after meeting the Lord. I patted my chest and said confidently, "Don't worry, I naturally understand this kind of thing." The scene that followed seemed familiar, and Lord Talman couldn't help but praise me again and again when he first saw me. Whether in terms of appearance or ability, I really deserved to be the strongest mercenary in the steel-walled city. This made me look flattered, and then I touched my head a little embarrassedly and said that I was just taking money to do things. But in any case, I was indeed very powerful. As soon as the words fell, Robin Knight was almost fainted. Could it be that I thought that using honorifics was a sign of etiquette? Lord Talmy didn't care about these details. On the contrary, he liked my straightforward personality, and if he could, he wanted to officially hire me as a guard knight of the Ionian domain. But my answer to this was a refusal without hesitation, because I am not interested in that kind of great title, but I hope I can have a handsome axe as a weapon. Talmy immediately agreed, but his idea of recruiting me did not give up. In fact, he had expected me to refuse, but he was bound to take me under his command anyway, and I naturally have my own plans, and I have long seen that this guy wants to recruit me over without spending a penny. So I will pretend to be tempted and take the opportunity to get a few benefits from him. The picture returns to the Hubert Chamber of Commerce, and the offensive and defensive preparations for Lumpuk have been configured in advance. Not only that, but also the latest equipment and enough helpers have been arranged. I nodded with satisfaction, and then told my subordinates to remember that all the materials needed by Lumpk in the future must be arranged properly for him by the Chamber of Commerce, and that the status of Lumpk in Hubert's Chamber of Commerce should be on par with me and Harry. It was at this time that I suddenly noticed that there seemed to be a strange figure in the bodyguard team behind me. But before I could open my mouth to question the man, I was suddenly attacked in the chest by the other party. The system randomly popped up a prompt window, and my fifth clone Kane was hit by a blow that almost killed him. Fortunately, this priestly immunity characteristic weakens the damage. Otherwise, I would probably have died on the spot. Just now, I made it clear that the murderer's identity was a vampire, and his level was at least above pure blood. But why would such a powerful person attack me, a businessman, for no reason? Thinking of this, my main body immediately lifted the call of the fifth clone. After all, if he knew I was still alive, that guy would probably have a back gun. As for the matters on the Chamber of Commerce's side, I can only temporarily leave it to my other clones. The territory of the Bisk family at the same time. As a branch of the same vampire clan, the Bisks waged an unprecedented war on this continent hundreds of years ago, and this time their target was the Bloxlark family, which is also a vampire race. The first plan was to kill the merchants who had private dealings with the tribal K-Slack family, in order to divert the attention of the tribal K-Slack family. The time comes to the undead empire in 2 days. Even though Olivia's intelligence Banshee searched the entire continent, she still couldn't find the murderer who harmed Kane. The trace is not until 3 days later, in the city of La Pira, Olivia suddenly discovers that a portal has appeared on the border of the city. Behind that door, countless vampires were pouring out continuously. Upon receiving this information, Hans immediately understood the guy's intentions, probably to disperse the combat power of the subordinates of the Bloxslack family. As far as I know, there are 3 vampire families on this continent. In addition to Bloxslack, there are also the Oba-Yibo family in the east and the Bisk family in the center. Among them, the Bisk family is the most powerful, and the information sent back by Olivia speculates that the other party will most likely be the Bisk family in the central region, so the power of Bloxlark alone is not their opponent at all. At the same time, on the other side of the Bloxlark territory, because Ah Kun was busy imparting knowledge to Lank, it was always the ancestor Jasmine who was sitting here, and now Jasmine has a feeling that Bloxlark is about to usher in an unprecedented catastrophe. This is her absolute instinct as a holy blood vampire. On the other side, near the border of the city, the people of the Ski family had already assembled here, and in this operation, they even dispatched 4 true blood and 44 pure blood powerhouses. But at this moment, Berea led led by the Bisk family, suddenly trembled in his heart. But he didn't take this strange, throbbing to heart. In the final analysis, they were just a group of little shrimp who didn't even have holy blood, and they couldn't make themselves so careful. And this scene happened to be seen by Hans, who arrived in time. No matter what, Berea, who had holy blood, was definitely a situation that should not be underestimated. Akun couldn't rush back to Bloxlark immediately because of Lumpuk's incident. And if I, as the immortal king now, appeared rashly, maybe more forces would be involved. And as for Abu, since he became the holy son of the Order of the Lord God, he was even more busy with work every day. In this way, Harry, who has been holding a grudge because of Kane's injury, must be the most suitable candidate. However, at the city gate at this moment, Harry was mistaken for an ogre coming out of the mountains by the guards because he was too burly. But fortunately, there was a certification document from the Order of the Lord God sent by Abu in advance, so Harry was able to enter the city smoothly. The picture returns to the interior of the castle in Bloxlark. Jasmine had already completed all the signs of combat power at this time. At this time, Berea also successfully broke into the castle with the Bisk family. To his shock, the ancestor Jasmine, who disappeared from the Bloxlark family many years ago, returned early. But this is not something to worry about. Even if you don't count the two top combat powers of him and Jasmine, the Lee Key family can still easily crush the tribe Kaslak family, which has long been in decline. On the other hand, Cranrod is full of confidence, and the decline of the tribe Kaselark has long been a thing of the past. Since Lord Akun became the new commander here, all the tribal warriors of Kaslak can gain combat power in this blood barrier. Berea immediately sneered when he heard this, but it was just some unconventional trick. Don't think he didn't see that this enchantment was mainly maintained by the true blood vampires of the tribe of Kaslak. After thinking about it, he raised his hand without hesitation and grabbed it hard in the direction of Cranrod. Seeing this scene, Jasmine instantly dodged forward and raised her hand to stop his attack. It was at this time that the people on both sides felt an inexplicable heartbeat. The Brox family is on the side because they noticed that there was a guy who was frantically destroying the blood barrier at this moment. The Bisk family, on the other hand, was asking if they had messed up the stomach of the merchant named King. Immediately afterwards, I saw a burly, strong man suddenly appear in the center of the battlefield in a handsome posture. At the same time, I also instantly activated the madness and dragon blood in my body. This scene instantly shocked everyone on the spot. How did their Bisk family provoke this guy? Because Harry, who has gained new powers at this moment, can easily solve one with one punch even against pure-blooded vampires. At this time, Jasmine held on to her composure and mocked the Bisk family for asking for a dead end and dared to target the Brooks family. But in fact, she was full of doubts in her heart, and she didn't know why Harry suddenly came to help. Before the words fell, the two scuffled together in an instant, and the conversation between them and even the fierce fight could not be perceived by the holy blood level or below at all, because this was a causal battle exclusive to the holy blood powerhouse. And after hundreds of rounds, Jasmine gradually fell into a disadvantage. After all, the era she lived in was too far away from the present. At this time, I also noticed Jasmine's increasingly faint breath. This Bloxlark holy blood is currently in an extremely dangerous situation, and if Akun arrives, it may be too late. In this case, I am determined to use all available means to completely become a complete dragon man. This sudden change shocked the enemy in front of me. How did I suddenly become so strong? And it seemed to be a new race they had never seen before. At this time, I was simply extremely excited. It turned out that this was the improvement brought about by the full use of the mad dragon's power. In this case, I hope that Guy Berea can withstand my anger. With a rubbing, as soon as I hit the causal barrier laid by the holy blood powerhouse, the scales on my hand instantly shattered. But since I can touch this barrier, then I have a way to destroy it completely. Thinking of this, a majestic true dragon aura suddenly burst out of my body. In an instant, I raised my hand and tore the invisible barrier in front of me in half. Then I smiled arrogantly, and my eyes were fixed on Berea. You should be the mastermind behind all this. Berea didn't understand why I wanted to help Bloxlark. After all, he had never heard of dragon men befriending vampires. I shook my head slowly with my hands in my hands. I told him not to think about this. I was just an agent for the victim. After seeing Berea's puzzled eyes, I decisively threw a punch forward. You damn guy doesn't even remember the victim as the perpetrator. Just let you taste the taste of being a victim too. But at this moment, Berea's voice came from behind me again. He felt that this was really a pity, and what I just hit was the phantom scene I saw in the causal space. However, as soon as he was halfway through his words, his neck was unguarded by Jasmine's all-out blow. Jasmine thanked me solemnly at this moment, and because of my appearance, the battle situation here was rebalanced. At the same time, the situation on the other side of the peripheral battlefield has also been settled. The 3 true blood and 44 pure-blooded combat forces sent by the Bisk family have been wiped out. All this stems from the fact that Akun rushed back at this juncture. I leaned towards the corners of my defeated opponents with a sneer on my lips. You really shouldn't attack Kane. He is a big man who can control the entire entire mainland business district in the future. It's over, it's over. After 354 days, my clone is finally about to usher in his final chapter. At this time, the situation on the other side of the peripheral battlefield was also settled. The 3 True Blood and 44 Pure Blood combat forces sent by the Suk family have been wiped out. All of this stemmed from the fact that Ah Kun rushed back at this juncture, and I sneered at the corners of my mouth at those defeated opponents. You really shouldn't attack Kane. He is a big man who can control the entire mainland business district in the future. As for the second in command of the Bisk family, I am willing to leave his life. This can also experiment and assimilate the feelings of other vampire families. Berea felt a tightness in her heart after noticing that the aura of her people was gradually dissipating. The guys who swore an oath against heaven promised him that if an accident occurred during the period, they would immediately appear to help. But why hasn't they been seen until now? What he didn't know was that, fortunately, the moment he stepped into Bloxlark Manor, the oath against heaven had already been dispatched. It's just that this force was easily diffused by Hans, who was left behind. Because of the addition of Akun, Berea never had a chance to turn the tide of the battle. Not only that, but he also fell into complete despair after that. Because I, a commander who has just taken office, do you want to snatch the holy blood by eating your own kind? I didn't answer his question, but silently counted the time in my heart. After 2.5 seconds passed, the system panel finally popped up. He congratulated my special skill blood on successfully evolving into blood holy blood, and the skill concealment and transparency were successfully integrated to become a special skill negation existence. In addition, there is a special matter, because it is the use of hybrid evolution to forcibly inherit the holy blood to start evolving. Since then, Ah Kun has the ability to exert some control over the Bisk family, and because of its own transcendent perception ability of spatial perception, space and even time can be within reach at will. And Jasmine completely dispelled the last trace of doubt in her heart after seeing my ability. It seems that this guy of mine may really be able to lead the entire Brocklos back to the top. At the same time, Garam, the first combat force under Hans, the headquarters of the Turku kingdom who had sworn against the heavens, suddenly appeared here. I thought that the disconnection from the nearby branch was done by those guys from the Order of the Lord God. I didn't expect that the new immortal king would come to the door in person. After sending an extermination order to Garam, I summoned Olivia, the king of banshees. Be sure to use his unique way to make the members of the Oath of Heaven reveal useful information. The picture turned again to the workshop of the Hubert Chamber of Commerce. At the moment, Lump has mastered some knowledge about forging. I believe it will not take long to successfully become the most skilled craftsman on the mainland. Kane is still in a coma, but in any case, the speed of recovery has exceeded my expectations. As long as the cooling of the teleportation array is restored, it can be immediately transmitted back to the other world. Thinking of this, the main god casually opened the system panel. Since Ah Kun absorbed the holy blood, I have accumulated a lot of achievement points. After thinking about it, this time it is still used to strengthen the clone skill. But this time, I don't plan to customize my clone by relying on special items, but rather customize the initial characteristics of my clone through my own choice. Then choose to become a magician with the ability to summon this time. In terms of name, it is called Hesperin. The picture turned to the main god order where Abu belonged. At this time, it has come to the agreed time to hold a summit meeting of mainland countries. As for the Elven Kingdom where Helis is located, he was also invited to it. During this time, Hera's strength has risen a lot. Because of my individual characteristics, I can continue to gain the power of nature as long as I stay in the Elf Kingdom. Most importantly, he also has a bow and arrow made of the stumps of the World Tree. The only thing I can't understand is that for some reason Shah Phelan's attitude towards me has improved a lot. When I was working hard to supplement my knowledge, she would often hide in the shadows to see how I was doing, and he would take the initiative to greet me every time we met. All forces that came to participate in the Continental Congress soon arrived, except for the Order of the Lord God and the Elf Kingdom. There is also the Magic Tower Alliance, which controls the magic center of the continent, the Empire of Osirian, where imperial power reigns, all the prosperous forces on the mainland, such as the mercenary unions of the steel-walled city. So as long as I can impress everyone here, I can definitely get a lot of achievement points through this. As soon as the leaders sat down, Denys, the crown prince of the Luohan Principality, fell into deep thought. In addition to discussing plans against the undead king, he shared the same idea as Simon Carter, the crown prince of the Osirian Empire. That is to take advantage of this opportunity to weaken the influence of the Order of the Lord Gods in the Principality. As the initiator of the Continental Alliance Conference, the Order of the Lords first clarified the purpose of holding this meeting. It is to subdue the forces that have been re-established by the third generation of the undead king. The guy plotted to make the knights and vampires of the Order of the Lord God kill each other. And he also conducted an evil biological experiment in the monster forest. That is, a blatant attack on the Great Temple, and a plot to take the last piece of the heart of the undead king. But this is only a continental catastrophe that is only presented on the surface, and what makes everyone have to be on high alert is the madness from the abyss. The current madness is spreading to the whole world, and after some reading and verification of ancient books, he finally learned that only by finding and sealing the core can he stop the madness from spreading, and this thing will have a high probability of being on the body of the undead king. Hearing this, Simon Carter said with a sneer, "Doesn't that mean that the Order did not keep the immortal fragments properly caused by this disaster? So I shift the blame to other forces." Hearing this, Ah Kun said extremely seriously, "The main God Order did have an unshirkable responsibility for this matter, but it is precisely because of the heavy responsibility given by the main God that every time it faces suffering, the main God Order has never had the idea of retreating. From a generation of immortal kings to the current 3 generations of immortal kings, the main God Order has been bleeding non-stop to protect the safety of the mainland. Even if it is right, as a son of the Order, I have never thought of denying it, so I can guarantee that in this decisive battle with the immortal king, as the son of the Order, I will always charge at the forefront, because this is the innate mission of the Order of the Lord." My words instantly ignited the battle of all forces. Even the Saintess praised my performance again and again, and I was able to show such calmness in my first large-scale meeting. Archbishop Latius then finalized the theme of the meeting, which was to establish a brave death squad against the undead king. If the Continental Alliance army is used to clear the way, then the death squad is united with the Holy Sun as the center to directly confront the special assault forces of the undead king. But even so, the leaders of all parties are still hesitant. After all, the death squads have set an example at the cost of their lives since ancient times, and those who are qualified to become death squads are the most important personnel in each force. Speaking of this, Simon Carter immediately said that he had a very good recommendation. Viscount Isaiah Prince of the Oslian Empire became an invincible magician at a young age. I have indeed heard of this name at work. It is entirely an imperial title obtained by virtue of his personal ability, and he is a very strong and courageous guy. But Prince Simon was willing to send this kind of talent to the death squad. Thinking about Prince Simon's thoughts, it is not difficult to guess that he sent talents valued by the Empire to join the death squad to attack the undead king, and it was also a team led by me, the Holy Son of the Order. So, if something happened on the way that led to the destruction of the entire army, the Order of the Lord God would surely fall into a situation of no return. But maybe to disappoint the guys, I will make them worthy heroes, and at the same time return safe and sound, and I am looking forward to seeing what they will look like on their faces by then. At this point, Bishop Latius announced that the first round of the meeting was over, and the second meeting would be held at the same time tomorrow. As his words fell, there was a sudden loud noise from outside the window. In the next second, Hans's figure slowly emerged under everyone's gaze. Since it was a Continental Alliance meeting about the crusade against the undead king, how could I, as the protagonist of this meeting, not be present? Seeing this, Abu immediately signaled the Knights of the Order to enter the battle immediately. This made Hans can't help but sigh at him, worthy of being a warrior recognized by the Lord God himself, and this momentum is indeed qualified to be my opponent. The current composition is exactly what I thought. The undead king suddenly broke into the summit of the Continental Alliance. Then Abu personally led them against Hans. At the same time, everyone saw that the undead king had broken into this place alone, so almost everyone rekindled their fighting spirit, and the previous fear of the undead was completely dissipated in this instant. This scene made Hans can't help but cover his face and laugh. It's really an interesting scene. First of all, I need to correct your delusions. As he spoke, several black shadows slowly appeared on the ground, and behind those black shadows were Hans's many undead legions. Fiona, the king of ghouls, the horror elf Pagos, and the dark knight Garam. The horror elf Pagus faced off against the elf army led by Granwood. The dark knight Garam is the warriors of the Order of the Lord Gods. Almost every undead legion has found an opponent to confront it. After only a moment, Granwood faintly noticed something strange. Is it his delusion? How do you feel that the undead legion is killing some people with bad minds at this moment? At the same time, in the center of the battlefield, Hans and Abu once again fell into an unprecedented life-and-death battle. But under the cover of the energy explosion, Abu and Hans looked at each other and smiled, their faces full of indifferent and calm looks. You must know that now my 2 clones have already reached the pinnacle of their acting skills. As for the next appearance, there is also Harris, who has been waiting for a long time. If the protagonist was Abu when the undead king was resurrected last time, then this time it was my 6th doppelganger, Harris. At this time, Shah Phelan was almost frightened and stupid, and his father had already told them to stay here, and no one could take action without Granwood's order. What I got was my faint voice, but my body was a little stiff, so I thought about shooting a few arrows to move my muscles and bones. Subsequently, with the help of the high elf Cecia, Harris slowly pulled up the Catra divine bow forged from the stumps of the world tree. Then only a whooshing sound was heard, and Hans was caught off guard by the arrow and hit his heart directly. Even the mask worn on his face was torn in half. This scene directly shocked everyone on the spot, and it was easy to hurt the undead king with just one arrow, and a very powerful master appeared in the elf kingdom. At the same time, the system prompt also popped up, because Harris successfully injured the king of the undead. The child of the special skill world tree evolved into the legitimate son of the world tree. At the moment, Harris was finally recognized by the world tree as a high elf. Here, Hans saw that the goal had been achieved, and after leaving a harsh word, he turned around and left. St. Liasta almost fainted from these words. What an extremely arrogant guy, thinking that the order could enter and exit here at will. But fortunately, there were no other accidents because of Abu's obstruction. The Saintess must calm down. I guarantee that the next meeting will be the anniversary of that guy's death. But Hans's words before leaving still echoed in Abu's mind, saying that what was about to give the moment of destruction and the real despair had not yet begun. At this moment, urgent information suddenly came from the front line, and all the border defenses of the Principality of Liuhan had completely collapsed. When everyone heard this, they immediately insisted that it must be a good thing done by the immortal king, and they came here in person to divert their attention, in order to allow their subordinates to completely invade the Principality of Arhat. At this time, Abu also understood the meaning of Han's words, and it seemed that the guys who should have sworn against the heavens began to take action. On the other side, the undead Empire Hans also urgently held an all-staff meeting at this time. The Continental Alliance wants to stop the revival plan of the undead empire, so we must show an invincible and strong will. The entire continent was plunged into terror again, and with it ushered in the dark ages of the undead empire.